agenda edits.
I think we're opening with the special voting meeting first.
No, what I was led to believe is the special voting meeting was going to follow the committee of the whole meeting.
You can do it either way you want.
In case you want to have a discussion on anything.
Okay.
We were trying to, I believe the recommendation was made at the last meeting to separate out those items.
Yes, absolutely.
And the committee of the whole agenda would provide us an opportunity to discuss some things. Although I believe when we get to some of the agenda edits, we will still need to have some discussion.
Yeah, pertaining to the agenda edits, which agenda are we editing? Which, the special voting meeting?
The last one on the agenda edits.
Okay.
So I ask again, are there any agenda edits?
We are in the committee of the whole, correct?
Yes.
There are agenda edits for the voting portion of the meeting.
Okay, so that comes afterwards. So
yes.
Seeing none, is there any public comment on the agenda items? And I didn't say this at the beginning of the other meeting because there weren't many people here, but the requirements for public participation are usually inside the blue folder of your agenda, and I've been violating my own stipulation that I said before, that if you come up to the microphone for your 3 minutes, ask all of your questions, please, or make your entire statement so that we can respond rather than us going back and forth question by question, because it's going to take too much time if we try and do it that way. So seeing no public comment, we'll go right to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. We're going to begin this evening with a report from the Blazer Foundation by Ms. Stephanie Conlon. So if you could come forward, please, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you. I, again, have lots of good information to share about what the Blazer Foundation has been doing. We've generously received a $500 donation from the Daniel Boone Education Association. We appreciate their support. That will go towards the teacher grant program that we are instituting and will be asking for grant applications in the spring from the teachers. We also received a check for $1,030 from the Moms Club of Douglasville East. Earlier this year, you might recall, we received another $1,000 check from the Moms Club West. There's two clubs in our community, and both of them stepped forward and were, one of the first to support the foundation with their fundraising. And they had a poinsettia sale in December and raised the $1,030 that they donated in full to us. So we are very appreciative of their efforts as well. We were able to finish up the 25 Days of Christmas raffle, and we did great there, met our goals there. We also instituted an Apple appreciation cards that parents could buy for teachers or other members of the faculty and staff, cafeteria workers, special teachers, the secretaries at the school, just as a way to say thank you at the holidays, and that donation was made in their name to the Blazer Foundation. And we are making this also available at other holidays, including Valentine's Day. A form went out to the elementary school students, letting the parents know that they can give that as a thank you gift at Valentine's Day to the faculty and staff. So we have lots of good things going on as far as money coming in. As far as partnerships and things that we are working within the district, right now we're forming a partnership to support the Daniel Boone High School Green Team, which I know you know all the great things that they're doing, led by Mr. Helzer and Mr. Harwood. We are working with them on the Parent Science Night. We'll have a table there for the Blazer Foundation. Also be talking to parents about the working with them. They have plans that they would like to turn one of the courtyards into a greenhouse, an outdoor classroom, and we're finding fundraising programs that we can work with them to help them accomplish those goals. We are also working right now on renewing our EITC application. That's the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program that the state offers every year as an education improvement organization, which is what the Blazer Foundation was approved for. We have to renew our application, and we have the opportunity to submit new programs that could be funded through that money that comes in. Just to remind you, the programs that we need to tie that to are advanced in nature and tied to the core curriculum. Different AP classes are very easy to tie that into. This year, the money that we earned through the EITC went to funding the first TV studio here at Danielson. And I believe that the department has been able to purchase enough equipment to get started on that. So you'll hear more information about that or see that in the press shortly. Regarding EITC, I will be attending a meeting tomorrow at Great Valley School District at their district office. It's sponsored by the Pennsylvania Education Foundation, and it's for a tax credit sharing session. So all day tomorrow we're going to be talking about any of the new things going on with the EITC program and ways we can go about getting more people involved with that. We will put up on our website a list of last year's business participants in Pennsylvania who participated in that program. If everybody could spread the word, take a look at it when it's on our website, see if you know anybody that works at one of those places, email me the name so I can reach out to them and see how we've become a recipient and get on their list to have them donate some of their tax credit to us. We are also holding a Blazer Foundation volunteer meeting at the Keystone Villa this Thursday, February 13th at 9 a.m. Any parent or community member is welcome. We also allow kids to come, so if somebody has a young child at home and wants to come and find out what the Blazer Foundation is about, everybody is welcome to that. I've been working with our grant writing team, several parents in the district that has experience writing grants, and we recently submitted a letter of intent for a grant to the Pottstown Health and Wellness for a greenhouse at the middle school. It's a healthy foods project with one of their departments as well as the science department to try to get a greenhouse there. And we're waiting to hear back from the Pottstown Health and Wellness as to how much or if they're willing to help us about that. We are focusing this spring on a couple different fundraisers that I will be happy to share with you the next time I update you. They'll be a little farther along with the details to bring in more money, and we'll be working with the administration to explore potential summer enrichments to continue the kids' learning and bridging the summer learning gap. Any questions?
Ms. Conlon, is that the greenhouse at the middle school, is that the same greenhouse you're talking about with the green team?
No, it's a totally different project, and they were the middle school one. That initiative was started back in the fall before we knew anything about the high school green team. They have some connections of their own that they are working with students, with parents, and also with a parent that has a connection to a potential greenhouse. So they're kind of spearheading that, and we're stepping in and helping with the fundraising where we can help with that. They have their act together pretty well. They had it all planned out and have a CAD drawing, and they had a lot of it already figured out.
And the list of businesses that participated last year in the EITC, you're posting that on your website?
We will post it on our website. We'll also post it for the previous year. The previous year was broken down by county. We're not limited to businesses in our district or in our county. It can be any business in Pennsylvania that would qualify for this tax credit program. So it doesn't, we're not limited to that, but it does help, obviously, maybe go to the Berks County businesses first. And sense to those businesses that already understand what the program is. We're obviously in the process of contacting new businesses, but there is a bit of a learning curve to try to, explain to them talk to their accountant. Again, if people have contacts in businesses, that certainly, helps speed up the process of educating them as to how they can benefit from that and how they're able to help support the school district.
Ms. Conlon, did the Daniel Boone Area School District send out a letter, do you know, to all of our parents touting the EITC?
No.
Okay.
Not to mine.
I would make a suggestion that we do that. I can tell you, I get letters from private schools that I went to when I was younger, the Hill School, the Windcroft School, and whatnot, that looking for EITC money. And if I'm getting them from the schools I went to 20-something years ago or more, I'm not sure why the Daniel Boone Area School District isn't sending out its own solicitation for these types of things. And we can work hand in glove with the Blazer Foundation to help get the word out there that, this is something that we need and something we want parents to help us with.
The private schools have definitely have that whole process down and have the parents through to understand what that is and how much that will benefit their children to be able to go back to their businesses and ask that. And that's definitely has huge potential in this district if we can educate parents. And it's going to take one or two times of trying to explain it to people so they know what it is, but the potential is really huge.
Are there, I'm going to redirect this question to the administration. Do we have back-to-school nights where we have all the parents assembled in an auditorium at one time prior to?
I'm going to.
Yes, in the fall we do.
Just one time a year?
Just one time for back-to-school night, and then we have parent-teacher conferences we'll have parent-teacher conferences this Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think you did come out at the beginning of the year, and we did offer a table for the Blazer Foundation.
At the parent-teacher conferences, does everybody just go directly to the teachers, or do they kind of assemble here first, and there's kind of an announcement by the principal, and then everybody goes?
Directly to their teacher for their appointment. They come in at a specific time, and then they go and back out.
Okay. I'm just thinking to myself that if there's something we can do as a school district to help educate parents on this, aside from just having a booth out there. Hearing from the superintendent or somebody else at a large gathering of parents to say, hey, look, by the way, this is EITC, this is what it does, this is how it works, and this is how it can help the school district. And the more you get that out there, I think the better off we are. And I don't know what those event horizons are in our calendar, that can be done on, per building or whatever the case.
Concerts, and that would be something that I could work out with Stephanie with regards to the different dates that we do have set up where we do have larger crowds coming in.
Yeah.
I will certainly be happy to. And they are on our calendar, but we just didn't explore those together. But that would be a very feasible time.
And I'm just thinking maybe Ms. Conlon can work with our administrators, because to have her come to each one of these things is one thing. She obviously is very knowledgeable and can explain it, but even if our different administrators can explain the program and how it can benefit, the money goes to the foundation, how the foundation then can support the school or support that program, music or sports activities or whatever it is through special AP classes, the TV studio. We can give examples of how EITC money is being used, maybe not just here yet, but in other school districts as well. People can start to imagine that and how they can contribute and help.
It might be worthwhile for Blazer Foundation to make a presentation to the high school through their morning announcements, through their broadcast system, because those students can take that information home, so that would be something we can work out with her as well.
Okay.
Okay.
We are working on a marketing piece right now that's more of a postcard that could go home, like an oversized postcard. But again, if that goes home without any explanation, like I really think district-wide it just needs to be talked about time and time again. And sooner or later, somebody will remember. That's exactly how we got the check from Biopharma. Is I was speaking to an individual that worked there, and she recalled the conversation but didn't recall the details. And forwarded me the information and said,
Mrs. Conlon, the only other thing I'd suggest, and I understand that you're trying this area first, but I think everybody realizes we are corporate and commercial poor in this area, whereas Chester County, especially toward Westchester and Montgomery County, Conshohocken and King of Prussia has business parks galore with some very big businesses that are probably looking for tax breaks. And I really think mining those areas might be more lucrative than the local areas.
But I
That's
think,
where our parents work.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying is if you get to the parents work at the companies, it's up to the parent then to walk into their, whatever it is, HR department or wherever and say,
It's different.
PR department or whatever it is.
Sometimes HR, sometimes marketing. That's
Yeah.
the time-consuming part because it's not consistent from company to company.
Right.
So again, if the parents are aware and can even put me in the right direction, I can.
I mean, I'll email you. I'll email the board, and I'll include you, Ms. Conlon, on letters that I received. The private schools, they've taken control of this. It's not an outside organization like a foundation or something else that's running these things. The schools are running this. It's the school logo on there. It's coming in school letterhead, and it's going to alumni. It's going to parents. It's going to grandparents. It's going to anybody that can move that program forward. And we've got resources much greater than a private school in terms of our overall dispersion of population and demographics. And I don't know why we're not leveraging that to the best of our ability. I think we can really help you with this. I guess I'm looking at the administration and just kind of saying, whatever we got to do to help jumpstart this.
Because anyone returning, I think there's a May 1st deadline.
Yeah, we got to jump on this thing now.
Yeah.
Well, and have you tapped the alumni the alumni groups
We
affiliated
don't really
with
have
them?
an alumni.
Each
that's
class,
something that the foundation needs to be working on in addition to everything else. But yeah, we don't seem to have a solid alumni association to be able to go to one source. There's a lot of Facebook pages that you can kind of tap individual classes. And you're right, like I do need to be reaching out to them.
I've been meaning to jump in. Do we have, I know in elementary school, folders go home on Tuesdays, a Tuesday folder. Would it be difficult at all to just get a letter from the district in those Tuesday folders expressing what the foundation would like to express to get those parents interested? I mean, I think that's one way, one avenue that we can
Yeah,
do
it should
it.
be going to the Tuesday folders. We should have it on our website. We should be, mailing. We do have an alumni database that we did assemble. I don't know how many years ago that, clearly needs to be scrubbed and things like that. But we can get that out that way. I mean, we've talked about a variety of different methodologies for getting the word out to do this. We just haven't executed on any of them.
Would it be possible to get these letters out to Tuesday folders sometime in the next week or two?
Certainly.
If we authorize it?
If she works with Mrs. Torsha, who works with the principals, I know that there's folders for elementary schools. I'm not sure what happens in the middle school, and I doubt there's a folder in the high school.
There's not one in the middle school either.
Okay.
That is definitely a challenge here is the communication.
And
to parents.
we've been trying very hard to do electronic communication to parents rather than mailings because they're so expensive. But I believe that we could connect some type of electronic communication for you, for those parents who are connected.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
All right. And I'm going to ask that you and Mrs. Torsha work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Collins, just maybe one other suggestion to add. Perhaps you were thinking of some of the area accounting firms.
Yes.
Obviously, they deal with their business clients.
Yes.
They can make that recommendation, so maybe there's some good recommendations.
Yes, we're fortunate enough to have a new board member on our board who is a CPA and very well versed in the EITC. So we were very fortunate to have him.
Well, quite frankly, we ought to be giving you our vendor list. I mean, all the vendors that we deal with, we should be handing that list over to the foundation, and that's where I would start. I mean, we give those, we give Fox Rothschild a lot of money, Sodexo makes money. Urban, what's the accountant's name? Irvine and Company. I mean, there's a variety of different vendors that we do business with on a daily basis that we ought to be.
Mr. Moyer was kind enough to forward that to me, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She worked in Merck, and all she did was dispense their grant monies, and they had, it was a great job. She gave money away. A lot of our people that live here work in the office parks and so forth that are located at Mr.
Martino.
I didn't want to call you Rich. Mr. Martino had suggested, and that would be our end. It wouldn't be like, we're going to, they're asking us to do something for them. Well, the connection is the fact that the parents and the children work for them.
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and they usually, once they know about it, they are more than happy to give it away because they are getting a very tough time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes, again, getting the word out to the parents, making them aware. We'll continue on our side and see if we can get to the parents through a letter from the district after the electronic application.
Because depending on what kind of job and how big they are, you don't realize they have this, right?
Yeah, sometimes people that work there don't even
Realize that there's not a department that gets money.
Anything else, Mrs. Conlon?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item under the superintendent's report is the revised 2013-14 calendar. And if you look on the voting meeting agenda, there is a corresponding resolution, item 9A, that addresses the fact that we need to have the calendar revised because we have had 6 snow makeup days so far this school year, and we've exceeded the number of days that are allocated in the calendar for makeup time. The other thing I'd like to point out is I believe that with a February 10th meeting date as of today, that winter is not over by any stretch of the imagination, as much as we might wish that it were. So I'm anticipating that we've got another good 6 weeks here where we're going to have to be juggling school and snow delays and cancellations. So if you would look, please, at the days that we're proposing to make a change, I would appreciate it. It's the attachment. It's the attachment that's on the voting.
Is that, I think I remember seeing that in an email. Is that
Yes, I talked about that in my
board update?
message to you.
It's on the last special voting meeting.
So if you look at
The last one, the
It's not
731.
attached to all these.
it's not attached, excuse me. All right.
We have one over here.
I don't have it on.
I have it memorized.
Oh, well,
I can
here.
bring it up on my email.
You guys have computers.
Well, I'm looking
Yeah, I'll
for
bring
the
it on.
Share alike. Mr. Doty should have one.
February
He's special.
7th. Right, here it is.
Yeah,
It's in the board update.
There's no good
Has
option.
that changed?
There aren't. It's ugly. Okay, so let's talk about this. Right now, the first makeup day that was designated in the approved calendar that was adopted last year is February 17th, which is the President's Day holiday. So we are making up a December. We were off December 10th. We're coming to school the 17th of February, and that will satisfy the need to make up that date. The next date we were off was January the 3rd. The marked makeup day on the present school calendar is Monday, April the 14th. So we are going to be making up Monday the 14th, and that's the week of Easter. We will be in school. The third snow day that we've had this year was January 21st. The next snow makeup day that is designated in the present calendar is Tuesday, April the 15th, We will be coming to school on Tuesday, April 15th. The fourth day that we're looking at, that was a snow makeup day, we were off January the 22nd. We are looking at Wednesday, April the 16th, as a day that we will be coming into school. That was a snow makeup day as well. The sixth day that we were off, sixth day that we were off was February the 5th. Wait, I missed a day. The fifth day that we were off was February the 3rd. I am recommending that we take the holiday, which is the April the 17th, it's a Thursday, and change that date from a holiday to a school day. The sixth day that we were off was February 5th. I'm requesting that we take the holiday on Monday, April the 21st, and make that a designated school day. Should there be another day off, the next day that we're off, we will be coming to school on Friday, June the 6th, which is also a designated school day or a designated snow makeup day on the present school calendar. For underclassmen, if we need to continue making up days, we will start making those days up the week of June the 9th. So we will be back to school on Monday the 9th, making up days. I'm recommending that the seniors, so that we can try and keep the date of graduation on Friday the 6th of June, that should there be a second day that we need to make up, they're already going to have to come to school on the day of graduation, which is Friday the 6th. But should there be another makeup day, that we look at bringing the seniors only in on April the 18th, which is a Friday the 18th, and only the seniors would come in that day without teachers, and the administrators, myself included, with Mrs. Torsha and the high school principal and the assistant principals at the high school, we would have the students, the senior students, for a half day on that date with engaged in activities, so that that would count as one of their snow makeup days and allow them to graduate on time on June the 6th. We would ask the seniors to provide their own transportation to and from, and if there were any seniors who would have a hardship with transportation, we would look at using some of the school vans to go get them and bring them in. I had the high school principal speak with the senior class officers to determine how amenable they would be to coming in on Friday the 18th so that they could graduate on time, and they didn't look at it as a problem. They said that they would work with Mr. Henkel to bring their fellow classmates in on that day to try and get that day to count so that they could graduate on time. If the board would not be interested in making up that day on that Friday, and you would still want to keep graduation on the 6th, then I need to advise you that you would be looking at a reduction in subsidy, because the seniors are required, like all the other students, to attend school 180 school days, and they would be short one day. For every day that the seniors do not go 180 days, we would lose $3,238.21 per day in subsidy. So that's something I want you to keep in the back of your mind, that it costs us money if we decide to let the seniors off the hook and not have to attend the full 180 days.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
I'll pose the unpopular question. Mm-hmm. Given that it's February 10th,
right,
and we can get snow as late as the end of March, mm-hmm, or even April, why wouldn't we just postpone graduation a week?
Right now we have a...
Before you answer that, if I may.
Okay.
Because I'd like to echo that. I absolutely do not like the idea of the seniors coming in here on a day without teachers. That's not education. That's managing a number. So, other than the fact that we had voted at one time to make June 6th the last day of school, which is arbitrary at best.
Well, it just seems to me that we're going to blow past, even if you take the 18th, that's one. You're saying we're going to have one more snow day between now and the end of March.
Right, we're not leaving ourselves any leeway whatsoever.
Yeah,
whereas
so
push
you're
it
going to
back
have kids
to
coming in
13th.
after graduation anyways, more than likely. Why wouldn't you just postpone graduation till the following Friday? That gives us at least another 5-6 days that we can work with. I think we can get through the season in that case. And if the kids finish a little bit early, they got a couple days off before they graduate, which is kind of nice, right?
In college, I know you don't graduate the day after classes end. There's a time period in between. I think that's a great suggestion, especially because we have no idea what the winter is going to be like. We have no idea how many snow days we're going to use up. If we set the graduation date on Friday the 13th, I believe, is that it? Maybe it's a little unlucky, but it gives you plenty of time to prepare, and it gives us some insurance on snow days.
I think that should be the formula moving forward, too, future schedule, quite frankly.
Well, I'm going to tell you what you're going to hear in the way of arguments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm just throwing the question
That's
out there
fine.
on the table, so you can tell me how many ways I'm wrong. So
Well, no, I just would like to point out a few things, and I want you to go back and imagine your seniors in high school, okay? Most seniors in high school are going to look at this as, oh my, I have to be here another week. I had already booked for the beach. I was leaving on Saturday morning, and I have a reservation at the beach for the week, or I have plans to start college early. Some of them may be starting a semester in June because they're starting school. Some will have military obligations where they'll need to report for duty prior to, as early as possible. And they've been working around this June 6th date. So as a 18-year-old, if you're thinking as an 18-year-old, this is not going to be the most popular decision that this board comes to. Now, it's practical, certainly, but there is also the fact that I know we have a reservation right now on Alvernia College, which is a totally different discussion that I wanted to get into this evening, and that is to hold commencement on Friday the 6th there, well, right now it's for rain or shine. But I would have to look to see if we would have an indoor venue as a backup for our graduating seniors. I know that we may or may not have, depending on how many days off, depending on when we finish, we may not have any teachers around to support us for commencement activities if there's 3 or 4 day gap between when the last day of school is and when commencement is. It may be the administration with a few teachers who are still here and haven't left for their own plans. They may be scarce as well. Is Mr. Henkel here? He can help me out here with some more.
Before we go on to that, I have another question. I know in the past our board has not set the graduation date until a few months before graduation. When did the idea that it was on June 6th even enter into the equation? Because normally the board doesn't set that until later.
we didn't even talk about it until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know why the assumption is it's on June 6th.
I was going by the calendar.
Does it have graduation on the calendar?
I think it usually does show it the day after or the day of the last day of school. But what would you do though then if we leave it at the 6th and look at? And some models are calling for a foot plus this week.
Yes, I know.
So what if we have 2 days or 3 days or 4 days? Then
We're in a week. We have to go because I would not recommend to the board that we lose that much subsidy. In fact, I've never lost subsidy.
Well,
I've always.
let me
the kids
go
are
on
going
record
to have to
saying
show up
we're
after
not going to lose
graduation
subsidy.
anyways.
Yeah.
They're going to have to be here on the 9th, 10th, and 11th of June regardless.
So the
right?
question is, why are we locking ourselves into something that odds are we're not going to be able to meet anyway?
No, we have a big snowstorm coming again.
That's what Mrs.
Okay,
Twardowski just said.
throw something else into the mix.
Go ahead.
We are thinking going past June 6th, because we are taking days from a scheduled holiday for spring break, which is the first spring break that I can remember us having in the district. We had plans. I know other people have plans who are going to be away. So how many kids are going to be here for those days? And do teachers have plans already? Will they have to cancel those, or will they be short teachers?
Well, I'm sure there are teachers. I know there are teachers with plans. And
The biggest part of your argument that I heard is that it's not going to be a popular decision, and I think we made that clear to the two new board members that there are decisions that are going to be made that aren't necessarily popular, but have to be practical. I don't think it's practical to try and force fit June 6th with more snow forecast.
okay. I mean,
This is extraordinary. I have a question.
Certainly.
You said about a half day for seniors?
Yes.
I thought that they had to have a certain number of hours and minutes to make a day.
No, they don't. Yes.
Well, they have to count it.
Pardon me?
They do have to have so many hours for it to count as, like, they can't come in for an hour.
They have to have an
a certain-
aggregate total by the end of the year of so many hours for secondary students,
Gotcha.
as do elementary.
So in other words, a half day would count, that half day that they would then count
A full day.
full day.
Yeah.
Dr. Sanker, isn't it a contract issue that other people are working with the children?
Where, for the seniors?
For Good Friday, for them to be in the buildings without teachers. Isn't it a contract issue?
I don't know that. I would have to
I
research
was
that.
shocked to hear that it was even being discussed at such high levels to bring students in without teachers. I mean,
They would be-
they're supposed to teach.
They would be
They're trying
fully
to be resourceful.
resourceful.
Yeah, I commend the out of the box
Yeah,
idea.
it's great to try. I get it.
It was a concept, out of the box.
Yeah,
all right.
out of the box.
And that's
what we
true.
want.
Yeah, that is
Brainstorming, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I just think my concern is that we're going to have more days, and you're not going to be able to meet it anyway, and then you're going to
Bring them in on Saturdays?
You cannot.
Why not?
School code forbids that.
Really?
Yep.
There
I went to
is
school on Saturdays.
there is a rumor
I'm not
that
kidding.
You walked uphill both ways.
that the governor and the Department of Education is considering, because of the weather this year, of authorizing Saturdays. I think we need to make a decision. We can't wait for the governor or Department of Education to make that come true.
The last time the Department of Education, if I'm correct, made any type of concession on the 180-day rule, I believe, was 1995. And that's when we had some type of huge snowstorms,
We
and
had 3 feet of snow in March.
we were closed for a whole week. And I believe the governor, at that time, it may be in 94, but I think it's 95. That was the last time there's been any concession on the 180-day rule.
Well, the voting on this is not until the voting meeting, but
Yes, it was.
I mean, between now and the voting meeting, I guess what I would suggest is we call Alvernia College and see if the 13th is available as opposed to the 6th. So we at least have that box checked.
let's get to the graduation venue before we call Alvernia.
Huh?
Let's get to the graduation venue.
Well, I mean, we
before
can
call
talk
Alvernia.
about venue, whether it's here or there, but if it's raining, I mean, clearly you're going to want to have a backup plan. And in the past, as a board, we've talked about making, having that backup plan regardless of whether or not you had it at the stadium here or you had it at Alvernia.
Well, does it, going with the outside, does it need to be on Friday? I mean, if the concern is that maybe we won't need 5 snow days, can you have graduation on Wednesday night or Thursday night?
You can, but people work the next day, and people coming in from out of town to see it may not be able to come during the week.
I asked that question because where I worked before, we had commencement on a Wednesday or a Thursday,
Just say historically,
Tuesdays.
it hasn't been on a
you know,
Friday. That's
and-
just something new.
Not uncommon. And I did ask Mrs. Torsha that question, and she told me that a lot of parents in the past have requested it be on a Friday so that they could have family in over the weekend for the celebration. So, I mean, yes.
I just wondered, because I know the Fridays has been more of a recent. In fact, I think last year was supposed to be on a Thursday as well until we had all the rain. So
It seems like that could be a good compromise between everybody having commitments.
So I've heard two things here around the table, if I could summarize. I've heard first that the idea of bringing the students in on the 18th is not a popular one. So do I have consensus that we take that off the table and not consider that? Is everyone in agreement with that? Okay. The second concept that I heard around the table was that you don't want to use the Thursday and the Monday as, Wednesday's already designated as a snow makeup day. So the Thursday and the Monday, before and after Easter, you don't want to take those days and make up school on those days. You want to preserve them as holidays.
No, I don't.
Well, that was my question.
That was,
if we're going to be going into June anyway, the week after, why wouldn't we take a designated holiday as
well, only because if you follow what Dr. Sanker said, if you're going to add the 18th, the Friday, plus the Thursday and Monday, now you've already used 3 days of the following week of June 9th, 10th, and 11th. Depending on how much more snow we get.
Well, but we still have the opportunity we still have April still a ways a week. We could go into June now, and if we had to tap into April, that's still a fallback.
Hold on a second. We've already designated the Thursday and that Monday as snow days anyway.
no, we didn't. They're holidays.
She's recommending it.
Oh, I see. For days 5 and 6.
Yes.
They were on the calendar as a holiday,
I see.
and I know there are parents who have made plans already, assuming that was.
So what you're suggesting, if I heard you correctly, is to leave Thursday, Friday, and Monday around Easter as days off, and only use them if we do get sufficient snow to have to use them as school days to still meet the 13th.
That was fine.
Well, you're going to be pushing one right up to the 6th of June, right? Because
We already have that. We have to use the 6th already.
yeah.
Here's my educator's hat on. I would rather make up days well before the end of school. I'd rather have my students in front of me in April before the end of school, because those last days that you add onto the school year,
They don't do anything.
kids are so ready to leave that the amount of teaching and learning that's done in that last week of school is very small.
Don't they have final exams that last week?
Some kids have final exams. Mrs. Torsha, help me out here.
Can I just add something that is occurring? The state has pushed back PSSA testing time, giving school districts an extra week to be able to instruct. So those days at the Easter break are going to be impacted by science PSSA testing, I believe, and I'll double check my dates, but I know that the testing has been pushed back, so it would be beneficial if students were at least getting testing done that week and getting it out of the way so that they're not going on break and then coming back and expecting to pick up from wherever they might have left off. I can get you those exact dates. I was trying to bring it up on my phone, but I
Mrs. Torsha, you lost me. Which week are you talking about for that testing?
April 14th, that the week that we're starting to make up days, appears to be part of the promotion for the state to be pushing back the window for PSSA testing.
So they want to do it that week?
They're pushing it back, so it ends up going through that week.
Well, they weren't going to have it scheduled when we were planning to be off, were they?
I'm thinking that
They're reacting to the snow right now.
They don't know what to do to help schools at this point that are losing instructional days. So they're trying to give us more instructional days on the front end of PSSA testing and saying, okay, let us push it back by a week because at this point it looks like we've lost a week of instructional time.
Have they definitely? They haven't definitely said.
Yes,
Yeah, they did. We got a memo on that.
And we've committed today to taking that opportunity to push our testing back that week, to push it back a week. But there's 3 different tests that are taking place. Reading and math is 1 week, and that's not impacting. But science for 4th grade and 8th grade, I believe, is falling in that area.
Well, you got to be here anyways.
Well, and if you add them on in June, are they half days or are they full days?
They would be full days.
Okay. Because I know in the past, I know with the makeup days tacked on at the end, it always seems like they don't really do anything. The kids just go to school and watch movies.
When they do get tacked on to the end, they'll end up being the half days that would have been at the last 3 days of the year, the school year. So they do end up being half days. The days in the beginning then turn into full days.
Okay, I got you.
I don't understand why the whole schedule just doesn't shift back a day. You had an exam set for the, whatever, May 30th, then it's now June 2nd, or it's June, whatever it is. As opposed to, hey, we're going to take some half day from here and throw it at the end, but we're going to still stay to the original curriculum. Then the days you miss just become freebies at the end. The kids aren't getting any education.
We're trying to prevent that.
Right.
That's what I'm
By
saying.
adding it in April, I think you're trying to prevent it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I hear what you're saying, but maybe I'm getting into a curriculum discussion now, which is, shouldn't we be testing at the end of the year as opposed to the week before?
In other words, if you're going to have your finals the week ending June 6th, have them the week ending June 13th instead.
What Mrs. Torres
incentivize your kids to continue to study, right? I mean,
that's correct. But what we're referring to right now are the state testing. It's the state testing.
I know what the state testing is about in April. I get that. I'm back in June.
With high school finals.
Yeah, with high school, right. Kids, basically,
well,
we're here, but we're not here. It's the last week of school. We're not engaged. I mean, when I was in school, the last days in school were exam days, and you had to be engaged. I mean, otherwise you failed your course.
Well, they will still move. They will adjust with the calendar. They'll move ahead. Move into June now.
Okay, so the argument then that these kids are going to be taking the last few days off or the last week off and aren't going to be engaged is...
I'm talking about K through 12. You may have a set of kids taking finals, but not the entire district. You don't have middle school kids or elementary kids necessarily sitting for final exams.
No, that's true.
So I would imagine that trying to engage those 4th graders, 5th graders, and 6th graders at the end of school is even more tough at that time of year than in April when it's not so nice to be outside. I'd rather have all my educational time when I'm teaching in March and April, because starting in May, there's so many other activities that the kids are doing. They're doing their soccer and their baseball and all that in the evenings. It's nicer that's time changed, and getting the kids back into a study mode in that time and move it into June is equally hard. So I'm talking to you as an educator. I'd rather have my time ahead of time.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question. I just don't get this at all.
Okay.
If you have lessons you're teaching.
Right.
Okay. I'm a volunteer teacher at my church. Okay. I teach catechism. Okay. We have so many days of classes.
Yes.
If you don't teach chapter 8 on Wednesday, 16th, I'll teach chapter 8 the next week. So if you're saying that these last couple days that are make-up snow days are useless days because nobody's going to teach anything, I mean, why doesn't everything just get pushed off? I mean, in other words, if you have a snow day on a Wednesday, does that day just disappear as the last day?
No. The curriculum picks up the next day those kids are in.
Right.
We pick it up and we keep teaching. I think that I made a very large sweeping statement in the last week of June, last week of school, that I may have taken you down a road I didn't want you to go to. I'm talking about kids who aren't it's tougher to engage kids in the last 3 days of school because they would rather be at summer vacation or outside or doing some other activity when it's beautiful out than it is to engage kids in teaching and learning in April.
Oh, I understand that, but any day that the sun's shining and it's not raining is going to be tougher to engage kids. I mean, it depends on what you're teaching them. If you're teaching them something that they have to learn, they have to pay attention, and it doesn't matter whether they're 1st grade or 12th grade. I mean, it's a learning
I think what else
experience.
Mrs. Dungan's saying is the last 3 days of school are either June 4th, 5th, and 6th, or June 11th, 12th, and 13th. You still have the last 3 days of school.
Always. Always. It's the same no matter what year.
Exactly.
I think we've heard enough pros and cons. We will vote on it in the voting
Okay.
meeting.
And I just want to say that I stand corrected. The PSS tasting resumes when the week after once we come back from Easter break. So my dates were skewed. So
Mrs. Sturga, I was going to say to you that the state is not going to cancel our Easter vacation. So.
Well, the 11th ended up being the end date, so I just was getting confused. So I just wanted to let you know that.
So hold it, before we move on though, Mr. Rathgeb had said, you know, are we going to take the 17th and the 21st of April, or are we not?
We're going to vote on that in the voting meeting.
Yeah, but shouldn't we talk about it? Has everybody made up their minds?
I don't know.
What?
All right.
I'm open to discussion. If there's any more discussion on
I
what.
think where you're going is it might be helpful if we had some idea which way we were leaning.
Yeah, I guess what I was going is, you know, as opposed to leaving it up for another half-hour debate 2 weeks from now, maybe this is kind of the time we're supposed to hash these things out.
Mm-hmm.
No,
You don't have to necessarily vote, but
we were going to vote on it tonight in the voting meeting.
Oh, well, then let's settle the issue. I mean,
Let's vote on it right now, then.
Well, I'm just saying, my response to that would be is, you know, if we push things back until the 13th and you got the 5 days there, and we get to the end of March and you find out that we don't need all 5 of those days in June, well, then maybe you take the April days off. And everybody gets to keep their holiday in April, and you just stick with the June plan in having those days in June.
The problem with that is that if people are making plans, that may be too late to change them. Or if I understood Mr. Rathgeb correctly, he wanted to leave those days as holidays, the April days, and only cancel them if we do get more snow between now and April. Is that correct?
If we wind up, if we're saying we're going to have graduation on the 13th, we have that week.
Right, you were saying extended
that
to
week
the 13th.
now gets burned up, then we could go back to the April plan if need be. If we're already saying we're going to be here that week of June, why not just be here that week of June?
That was my point, is that you're going to utilize June 1st, and then you're going to utilize the April days 2nd.
Yeah, they would still be holidays unless we had so much snow that we had to cancel those too.
Right, that was my point. And if that's the point you were making, then I'm in agreement with that. So,
I think there's a consensus to incorporate that into the changes that we're going to make.
Well,
Nobody's going to be there that week anyway. I mean, it'd be 50% full, and there'd be boring plans. Teachers have plans. If you take away Thursday, Friday, and Monday.
well,
Right.
Friday's off the table. Friday's definitely off.
Okay, Thursday, Monday.
Thursday, Monday is what we're talking about.
Lots of people make plans. I think that's your point, right? That was the first time in a long time to make plans for like a spring break.
I think the consensus is Thursday and Monday just came off the table.
Well, here's the
There were holidays and calendars. They weren't makeup days and calendars.
I grew up in the snowy side of the state, and we always had those days as makeup.
Mr. Doty, this has become the snowy side of the state.
It has.
well, when we developed the calendar last year, we specifically made a larger break in April so that these would be used as snow days. But, you know, if we're going to, because of the volume of snow that we've had, if we're going to punt graduation back a week, you're going to be here anyways. I don't see an issue with keeping it in place until...
Well, do we want to make any kind of change at all then in the calendar at this point? Do you want to wait until we get into March?
Well, I guess what I would suggest is that the February 3rd and the February 5th dates would be now the 6th and the 9th of June. Is that right?
The February 3rd date is, they would be the 6th.
And the 9th.
Yep.
And then anything after that would be the 10th, 11th, and 12th of June. And then you're going to revert back to the Thursday and Monday of April.
So we would have to get 5 more days before we go down, 5 more snow days before we would go back and pick up the Thursday and Monday in April.
Yeah, on your 4th snow day, you'll be back in April again.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I'm hearing the board.
2 weeks. There should be a better idea that in 2 weeks, I think, because we might have
That would be great.
by the voting week.
We're voting on that tonight.
Right, but by the
We'll be
next
riding
voting
on
meeting, it
at
would...
the next voting meeting, we'll be riding on another revised agenda. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is everybody in agreement with that? Mr. Speed, what do you think?
I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
Which one?
Can I just add one more thing?
Yes.
That if you add instructional days in April, they're more valuable towards our high-stake testing that is still taking place at the high school, which is Keystone exams that don't take place until May. Okay? Every day that we get up until that testing is very valuable since we're losing it. We've gotten such an inconsistent schedule. So personally, I find more value on the front end of the snow makeup days than on the back end. Because
It's a point.
because of the high stake testing and that how that is attached to us as a district and our school performance profile. So that's just my last 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a consideration.
Mr. Speed, what were you saying? Which sounded reasonable?
What sounded reasonable to me would be to have those makeup days on the 6th of the month.
I'm hearing that's the consensus.
Well, look, I don't want to buck what our administrators are telling us is the most valuable days, but,
I understand.
I'm willing to consider it. I'm just trying to balance this thing out here. So
We have to, it's going to be a give and take this year. It just has to be. It's extraordinary.
It's on the voting agenda for the subsequent meeting. So
No, it's on for tonight.
no,
that's what I mean. The subsequent meeting tonight. Special voting.
All right, well, we're going to roll into it then, but don't we want to kind of get a consensus of what we're going to do at that point in time? Because it sounds like we have two scenarios. Either you're going to have it in June or you're going to do it in April. And which is it? Which are we going to do first? June 1st, April 2nd, or April 1st, June 2nd?
Well, I guess,
If you're going to get a consensus on, time out. If you're going to get a consensus on it now, you're basically voting on it now. That's what you're doing.
I just don't want to get to the meeting and debate it all over
What do you want to
again.
do? Do you want to vote on it now?
Yeah, we can vote on that. I just don't want to. I don't want to debate this for another 30 minutes or 30 minutes.
Maybe now, I was just trying to think logically. I mean, most folks would we add back in that Monday after Easter? Would that be a rational day to come back on? Use that day.
You're adding a third scenario now.
I'm adding a third scenario. trying to split compromise here.
I think the teaching day for the test is offset by the fact that there's going to be so many people taking it off anyway. I know when we make plans to go to Florida, it doesn't matter.
I'm just trying to think if people made plans, would they be back before that Monday?
Exactly.
Let me come back to the original.
Schedule holiday.
Let me come back to the beginning of the discussion. If we have more snow days, and it's very likely we're going to, we're probably going to have to push back to the 13th of June. That's really what we're talking about.
Right.
It gives her some breathing.
For me, I mean, but I'm looking at it is if the point of the days is for the kids to actually learn, and I hate to say this, but this is what we do. We're teaching for the tests, right? That's what everybody's heard for the last 12 years or whatever it is. Then wouldn't it make sense to have the teaching when we can teach for the test, not at the end of June or the second week of June when the tests are over, long over, and done? I don't know. I guess the question is that we have to try to, I guess, figure out how many people really have plans, and I don't know how we know that. I mean, do 50% of people have plans to go away? I don't know.
The administration feels so strongly about that. That's okay.
And if parents want to take their children there, we have educational trips that they can ask for an excused absence ahead of
my
time.
application.
Okay.
All right, we've heard the pros and cons. We're either going to vote on it now or we're going to vote on it in an hour. I mean, what are we doing?
We'll vote on it since we divided it.
We just don't want to talk about it.
Into the voting meeting.
Yeah, I just voted on the voting meeting. Okay.
But if not, we'll vote.
Dr. Sanker, you want to go into Firsborough Elementary?
Yes, I will tell you. I'd like to, well, I don't want to, but I received a call on Sunday from Ken Smith, Sunday morning, telling me that he was at Birdsboro Elementary because the boiler was leaking again. And that he had a welder coming in today to do some welding there, and he was hopeful that he could get the boiler going because he got a call from the custodian who had been on that night that the building had gone cold over the weekend, and he immediately went down to the basement and discovered that the boiler was leaking again. So we did have a repair done today on the boiler. We hope that will hold. We're hopeful that it will hold. I do want to make a correction here on something we discussed about a month ago, and I know it made the papers, and it was, I think it was interpreted incorrectly. For us to repair a boiler or replace a boiler, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 a boiler. Could be a little more, a little less, but it's not $2 million. A boiler is anywhere in the range of $200,000, maybe at the extreme $200,000, maybe at the extreme of $500,000. And if we want to, if we had to replace the boiler, it would be a pretty big deal trying to get that old boiler out of that basement. It would have to be cut apart to take out. So that $2 million quote that's been everywhere was for a full replacement of all the heating and air conditioning and all the pipes in the entire building. And we aren't looking to do that. We're looking at some point having to replace a boiler or maybe two boilers. Hopefully not right now, hopefully when the kids are out in June. There is money in capital reserve right now to make a repair or replacement on these boilers. So there's money set aside in capital reserve to replace the boilers.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Boyer. Don't we have about $585,000 in our capital reserve?
It's a little less after the three projects that you were approved in, I believe, in October.
Right.
November, the bathroom repairs at the high school.
Right.
For their projects, so the
Okay.
windows. So there's about $540,000.
$540,000.
Yeah.
And I spoke with Mr. Smith and I asked him, could we replace two boilers at Birdsboro for $500,000 or less? And he said yes.
Have we gotten competitive bids on these things yet?
No.
Okay. I might suggest that we go down that path.
We would do that, right?
Oh, absolutely. We have
to. You have to go through the advertising, the contract docs, and all that.
Yeah, we have to go through all that by law. We can't just appoint someone to come in and replace boilers.
No, I recognize that. It just seems to me we might as well start the process.
Because no matter what you do with that building, you've got to have a furnace in it. Okay? Yeah. That's the bottom line. So hopefully we can get through till June with the boilers we have. If we don't, Mrs. Torsch and I are coming up with a backup, and we will have a backup plan to present to you and to parents on relocating kids if we had to. But from what Mr. Smith, pardon me? What? Yeah, it is. It's hanging there by a thread. It's been welded so many times that it's thin and it's very difficult to weld again. And I'm not an expert in this area by no means, but I'm listening to what Mr. Smith is telling me, and he's telling me they did a good job today, and we're hopeful we can get through on this.
I'm not too familiar with boilers. I wish I were more familiar. But is there any safety issue associated with this, or that's a question that's been circulating over here?
I'm going to ask Mr. Seldenridge, you've had some experience with boiler replacements in your tenure?
Yeah, as far as a safety issue, it's not. It's more of a boiler leaking, and if you're thinking about it, will it blow up or something, that's not the case. It's simply an area that has to be monitored and watched. And as Dr. Sanker said, you're probably looking at replacing the two boilers for anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. The rest of it for pneumatic controls, which are nobody uses anymore, replacing those and updating the whole system, which can be done over a period of time, or depending on what you do with the building, not at all.
So boilers have control panels on them, to heat, flame, all that kind of stuff. So when you get a leak, and temperature drops, they shut down, they shut off.
It's all self-controlled.
Yeah.
You could actually run the building on one boiler. It's not recommended, but if if you can get through the cold weather period that we've been having in February, you're probably out of the danger zone.
I know when we looked at the boilers with Mr. Smith back in December, he said he would not weld it again because he said it's futile. I'm just wondering what was the,
He didn't have a choice today. He brought welders in.
So how much are we spending each time we have it welded about?
I'm going to have to defer to Mr. Boyer on that one because I don't have a clue.
If we welded 10 more times, have we spent $50,000?
I actually have to wait to see on that cost because I don't
We
have
had it
that.
welded before the...
Yeah, I would have to get back to you on that.
We don't have an invoice from December yet.
Would new boilers be more efficient? Would we see savings on energy costs? Or?
I would hope. Would there be an efficiency in energy costs with the replacement of boilers?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, new boilers, you're going to have much more insulation and more efficiency. And
But would that be with just the boiler, or that would be with the whole system?
no, it would be just with the boilers. I mean, the boilers you have in there are 25 years old, so they don't have the insulation that a new boiler would have. Obviously, if you replace the whole HVAC system, you put in variable speed motors, you put in a 4-pipe system instead of a 2-pipe system, you put in digital controls instead of pneumatics, you're going to save an additional amount. I don't know what the exact payback would be, but it'd be pretty long.
Yes.
I was the one who asked the question at the last meeting as to what the cost was going to be.
Okay.
And originally when we toured the school, the $200,000 was $100,000 per boiler.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I asked I asked if there was an estimate, and Mr. Weir came up with $2 million. Now, I did, between the $200,000 and the $2 million, I don't know where that came from, but what precipitated the $2 million estimate? It had to come from somewhere.
Well, it precipitated from Mr. Smith, who would obviously recommend replacing the whole HVAC system if you continue to use Birdsboro as a building. And that can be done over a period of time. It doesn't have to be done all at once.
Okay, but the $2 million was suggested that we replace everything because it's as old as it is?
Yes.
So, in other words, the $2 million is a cost that we would have to consider is going to be an expense in that building in the near future.
Yes, I'd say if you're going to hang on to that building, then that's an expense that you're going to probably have over the next 5 years.
And we could have it possibly sooner than later, depending.
No,
on...
the boilers are the immediate thing. That would have to be done this summer.
Right.
The other things are efficiency items. They don't necessarily have to be done immediately. There are still buildings even older than Birdsboro that have pneumatic controls in it. But obviously, from a maintenance perspective, to be able to replace pneumatic controls with digital controls gives them more control over the system as far as set points, turning it on and off. But the immediate concern is with the boilers themselves.
Right, but we still have to build that $2 million into our budget.
Well, if I understand it, it must be the big part of it must be going from a 2-pipe to a 4-pipe.
Correct.
Because I remember the 2-pipe over there, if you want to shut off the heat and go to AC, you got to switch the system over. If the 4-pipe, you can have one or the other. So that's why one of the complaints over there is when on a warm winter day, you can't turn the heat off because the heat's on. And then on a cold, so that the 4-pipe would give a much more environmental appeal over there. Whether that's needed, I guess, is a separate.
But the 4-pipe goes over the 500,000. I mean, the 2-pipe, going from a 4-pipe to a 2-pipe, puts us over the 500.
Mrs. Dungan, let me try and answer your question. Mr. Smith submitted a report dated January 31st, 2014. This is where your $2 million is coming from. The system there, the unit ventilators and fan coils have a life expectancy of 20 years. we're already at 25. The boilers, we just said the boilers are shot. The controls have a life expectancy of 20 years. We're at 25. The domestic hot water system, the unit heaters have a life expectancy of 13 years. We're at 25. The scope of the job that this training, we brought in an outside agency called Trane, T-R-A-N-E.
Oh, that I'm familiar.
They did this audit, and they're saying the scope of the work is boiler replacement, domestic hot water replacement, building controls, and a 2-pipe to 4-pipe conversion, including replacement of fan coils and unit ventilators, $2 to $2.5 million. Now, even as Mr. Sutherland said, you don't have to do that now, probably within 5 years. The boilers alone are going to deplete our $500,000 capital reserve. That's it. It's shot. So any money beyond that $500,000, I don't know where it comes from.
So we have to build it in somewhere, and we're ready.
I don't know where you're going to build it in from other than borrowing it.
Okay. I mean, these are the issues we have to consider.
All right, I have 2 more things, real quick. On the calendar, the school calendar has designated March 3rd through 6th as kindergarten registration week. We are going forward in registering our kindergartners for next year. The principals met with Mrs. Torsha and I last week because they need to begin to prepare the materials and get the parents scheduled to come in because they are by appointment. We will know our kindergarten class after that. I know the board doesn't want to make a decision on kindergarten in isolation. They want to look at the whole picture. But as we do that, we are proceeding with registering our students for next fall. The graduation date...
Let me come back to the kindergarten.
Yes.
And I was the one that said I did not want to do the budget piecemeal, and I think that was pretty much the consensus of the board. However, if you're going to start registering in March, this is just my personal opinion, I think we need to vote on this at the next meeting, on the voting meeting, the school board meeting. You can't have people register, and this was the argument last year from the public. You can't have them register here and then in April tell them, never mind, because then it may be too late for them to register their children somewhere else. So my understanding is you're going to talk to us tonight about some numbers. We have some ideas about some numbers.
Yes.
I think we're going to have to let the public know yes or no sooner rather than later.
Well, last year what we did was we had a budget meeting at the end of February, as opposed to putting it on a voting meeting, where we discussed nothing but the budget. And we made 2 decisions. We made decisions about kindergarten, and we made a decision about sports and activities, because coaches are trying to build their schedules for next year as well with other school districts. So those 2 event horizons were addressed before March 1st last year. I think we met like February 26th or something. It was like a Wednesday night. And we sat here for 2.5, 3 hours going through the budget so that we can make a decision on those 2 things.
Well, then I suggest we do the same thing, because February is going to fast come to an end.
Well, and if I state to you that if we wait till the 24th, it's a very short time for our principals to get a couple hundred kindergarten parents scheduled for the week of that we've designated on the calendar as...
we have a lot of faith in them. They did it last year. As you heard Mr. Basil say, we did it February 26th last year.
Okay.
I mean, it's not optimal, but it can be done.
Well, are we going to schedule a separate meeting, or are you just going to do it at the voting meeting?
No, I think I agree. 2 or 3 hour meeting.
Right, but I mean, we're already at the 10th. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I've already got probably 7 nights booked in the next 2 weeks. So if we're going to talk about a date, sooner is better than, I mean, talking about it now is better than waiting. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, we need to schedule a budget meeting.
This could be very, very unpopular. So let me just suggest, and maybe I'm completely off base here. This would be a board discussion meeting about the budget. Is there anything prohibiting us from doing it on a Saturday morning, or are we totally opposed to that? Because that might work for some other people.
I think you can do it during the day. I think you can do it I think you can do it whenever's convenient for everybody, but I don't.
I know we have a lot of obligations, and I was thinking that weekend before the voting meeting.
You're talking the 22nd?
Yeah.
I can, you'd have to find out from everybody else.
Weekends are tough for me because I've committed myself to my kids. I don't see them during the week because I'm at these meetings. So my weekends I've sort of set aside, for different events that my kids go to.
What about Monday night, the 17th?
I've got a board meeting.
I was going to do finance and rec that we were going to reschedule for that. But, that would finance would certainly probably take precedence.
We have a finance committee meeting scheduled for the 18th. And, clearly the week after that, after the voting meeting, I don't have anything in my calendar, the 25th and the 28th.
Well, isn't this finance? Wouldn't this blend with your meeting?
Well, we wouldn't have a finance committee meeting.
Yeah.
When I tell you these budget meetings take all night, they take all night.
Okay.
And we don't discuss anything else. So any of the other initiatives that we had scheduled for that date would have to be canceled.
At this point, for me, the only nights I have were the 17th or the 20th or the 27th, which are Thursdays.
I could do the 27th.
I could do 27th. It's running late into the month, but...
Mr. Doty, Mr. Rathko?
I'm okay on the 27th.
I will call in, but it'd have to be...
You're good?
Mr. Seldenridge?
Well, just a reminder, you must, as a board, vote on a preliminary budget by February 19th. It has to be 90 days before the primary.
I believe that's on the agenda for tonight, isn't it?
Right.
I do.
Yeah, but we can vote on a preliminary budget. It's whatever it is.
Right.
Budget changes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you're aware with it as you were scheduling that, if you were considering postponing that vote for the preliminary budget to a later time.
No, we're not considering that.
Thank you.
We're just talking about a budget meeting
Would this
now.
budget meeting begin at 7 or later?
We could start at 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
On the 27th. Okay.
Mr. Seldenridge? You would be involved in this meeting, or would you be available that evening? The 27th of February, it's a Thursday evening.
Yes, as far as I know.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that a definite or advertised?
All right, so we have 7 o'clock on the 27th.
For budget work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be here. Yeah, I think it's probably best it's the 27th. We've got 2 new board members here that we need to get up to speed on budget stuff pretty darn quickly. Trying to get something done soon, that's going to be, I think, problematic.
Are we good with that? Because I'll put it on the website right now.
I haven't heard anybody dissent for that.
Do you?
That's good.
I can
7 o'clock on the 27th.
All right, I'll put it on the website right now.
Do you want to give any consideration to a 6 o'clock start? Would this board consider a 6
I would not like to start at 6. I'd like to start at 7 because I have other obligations up until 7. That's
Okay.
my personal.
Yeah, I have a hard time.
I just thought I'd ask.
I have a hard time getting here by 7:30, so.
Exactly, let's do location. That's why we can do that over the
Pardon?
No, we do it here. I'm sure this room will be full that night. I can actually probably promise you it will be full that night.
Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on. We've already talked about the graduation date. The only thing we haven't talked about is the venue. It's been brought to my attention that there are some students and parents from the class of 2014 who would like to hold commencement exercises at Daniel Boone High School football field, weather permitting. No, I'm not. I'm bringing up.
No, I thought it was already here. I'm sorry. I thought it was out on the field.
Okay.
I like your way of thinking.
No, it wasn't.
I'm not. These ideas are coming to me. I am not generating them.
Oh, no,
okay.
no. I didn't realize it wasn't already scheduled for the high school.
I think the thought was that it's at Alvernia because the date of the 6th is on hold at the Alvernia. Okay? But
I thought that was just a rain date location, but
I think it was just.
I wasn't here when you
that
said
last
when
year,
you guys
that's
talked
what
about that.
Just in case it wasn't ever decided that's what we were going to have.
So I need to know where this board would like to have commencement for the class of 2014. Do you want it on the football field, weather permitting? Because
Yes.
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 Yes, we want to. We're proud of our stadium.
all right. I mean, I will go with what I don't have a dog in this, So
Just remember, I mean, the issues that we had at the stadium were sound.
Mr. Smith, I have a letter from
Yeah, I've
here that
seen.
it's fixed.
I've seen that. I'm just letting you know, from sitting out there for 2 or 3 years in a row, people can't hear the speakers. People can't. They're not close to the kids. Those were the objections we got, in the past. And last year at Alvernia was warmly received because of the proximity to the students during the event. I don't have a dog in this fight either. Quite frankly, I'll go wherever it is, whether it's at Alvernia or at the stadium. I just don't want to sit there again and listen to the valedictorian get booed and hissed and yelled at that they can't hear them. During the graduation ceremony. I thought that was very disrespectful and disconcerting and kind of ruined that experience for those seniors that had, stood up there and had to listen to that. So I would want to make sure that we've got the best sound system available and everybody can hear it from wherever, and it's not a problem.
I would suggest that Dr. Sanker, if she's still here, or Mrs. Torsha, who will be here, would order Mr. Smith to stand there by the sound system with his letter saying the sound system
Yeah,
is
it doesn't
fine.
do you any good when you're there, though, and it's not working. That's the problem. And
we check it out first.
I've had experience with
checked it out.
this.
I had good experiences with the band.
Yeah, it's a different.
It's different. It's really different.
I can hear the band at my house practicing, for crying out loud, in the parking
No,
lot.
I mean the
So-
band conductor. I've been there when he puts on the shows, the performances for the community, and it's very
But this is different. You have actual speakers. So you have to mic the speakers. They have to have like a portable mic. And you have to have speakers throughout the audience so that they can hear. And you have to make sure that you don't have the sound back feed and all this. And obviously I've been through this before. So having a group come in who does sound for a living and rehearses with the speakers and make sure that everything is mic'd and the speakers, we have enough speakers that you can hear. I mean, that's an art to be able to have that done and to use your actual speakers that you use for a football or athletic event on the field. They are usually just projecting out the calls for the athletic event, and they're muffled. I mean, it's not clear. And someone who's put a lot of time into a valedictory address or a salutatorian address, you really want to hear what they have to say. So I have to support Mr. Basil on this and indicate that if it's the wish of the board to remain at the football field, I'd like to look into making sure we have adequate sound for that event.
And I think that's two separate issues, because if we decide to have it at the football field, you can get prices on having a sound company come in, but then we'd have to vote on whether to spend that money or not.
Correct.
So that's a separate issue. But right now, I mean, I've heard the pros and cons, and I'll give you the two pros I've heard. One is that part of the rationale for spending $5 million for a stadium was we would hold graduation there. And the other rationale is I've heard from quite a few parents and students that they want to hold the graduation here, not Alvernia. And a con is that we are paying Alvernia. And granted, it's a nominal fee, but it's $1,500, I understand. And it's $1,500 we don't need to spend. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Now, Mr. Martino, in terms of if there is rain or bad weather, would it be possible to hold graduation indoors at Yankton High School? I know we have seating available.
We have seating capacity in the auditorium and the LGI room next door to it that accommodates 1,168 people, according to Mr. Smith. Plus the seating capacity of the gym, which we could simulcast to, is another 900. The negative to that, as you say, in the rooftop units will not maintain comfortable temperatures on a real humid night. So
people might be uncomfortable.
But people should be forewarned to dress comfortably for the weather, depending on what it is.
I mean, there was a time without air conditioning.
Yes, there was.
Well, wait till you, I mean...
What's the capacity of Alvernia?
Well, it was definitely before your time.
It was.
This is Torsia.
What we did last year.
Do you know the capacity at Alvernia?
Approximate, I mean,
I thought it was
how many guests did it
Tamara, we also did
I believe they
streamline
seated
the buildings.
1,500 comfortably last year. I believe that was the number of seats.
But nobody's saying that we can't comfortably fit in Alvernia. That's not the issue. We can. They did it
No, I
last
was
year.
asking how many you could seat there as opposed to inside at the high school. That's all I'm asking. That was the only reason I was asking, so I knew what the comparable numbers were.
And I was thinking, if possible, even if we have graduation on the stadium, I know we have a pretty dedicated group of videographers at the high school. Would it be possible to simulcast it on the website, put it into the auditorium? Maybe if there are parents or grandparents who don't want to be out in the heat, you could have it up on the screen in the auditorium. If there are students who would be willing to do that, and we could put it out. Let's say we have parents or grandparents in California who want to watch graduation. We can't make the trip out. If they can tune in to dboon.org and see.
We did that last year.
We did that.
Yeah,
Let's do it again.
last year they did.
A student actually, made a suggestion to do
I
that.
remember that, yeah.
And that's all stuff that could be decided.
There was a cost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that could be decided later. Right now, the issue is do we book Alvernia or do we decide to have it here?
Here. I think you need Alvernia as a backup. I mean, quite frankly. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, if it rains, you're going to stuff 1,200 people into the gymnasium and sit there for 2.5 hours. I think there's going to be really a lot of uncomfortable people in there. And you're not going to get the seating capacity that you do at Alvernia. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe you poll the students, poll the senior class and see where they want to have it. Give them an understanding of what the cost benefits are. It's their graduation.
There's probably families that would pay $25, families to have it where they could have it in. Honestly, I mean, I bet they would. When I was on last time and we moved it from the Sovereign Center, there was people that told me they'd have been willing to pay to have it at the Sovereign Center again, because that way you could have as many people as you wanted. You didn't have issues with tickets and seating and that kind of thing. So,
except you established a precedent last year by doing it for free. Am I correct?
No, we paid for the Alvernia.
No. Did you charge the parents?
I don't think so.
No.
That's what I'm saying. You established a precedent last year that it was free.
We provided sports for free for 50 years, and we implemented an activity.
This is graduation. I mean, come on. I mean,
I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying if you really don't want to pay the $1,500 to raise
I have no connection to
Alvernia.
Why would we graduate in our own facility?
I agree.
I don't get
we
it.
didn't have a connection to the Sovereign Center either.
I agree, yeah.
All your so close.
And my stepdaughter graduated at the Sovereign Center, and after this discussion started, I went home and asked her, and she said she hated it.
Well, that's what I'm
She
saying.
wanted to do it. She would have rather have done it
We can
here.
mess around with our own date. We don't have to worry if graduation date changes. We don't have other people to
I went to a graduation at the Sovereign Center. It was very nice, but it was very impersonal for the kids afterwards. It wasn't, and I went to one last year. We went to one at Temple University, and that was in the school. So the one at the Sovereign Center was. You could see everything. That part of it was great, but it was just totally impersonal for the kids. They had no connection with this big field.
I mean, I've been at all three. I've been on the field, I've been at the Sovereign Center, and I've been at Alvernia. And, I can understand the reasons why everybody would want to have it at their school.
Yeah.
I get that. And when it's a nice, beautiful day out, I get that too. I always thought it was a little peculiar that when you're out in the field, you are a long way away from the parents. I can tell you that much. And as a parent, I'm trying to take pictures of my kids, and they're getting up and getting their diploma. I mean, you need a telephoto lens like this big to be able to see your kid, even identify which kid is up there when they're shaking somebody's hand.
Well, I graduated from a school that was 3 times bigger than this, so that was protocol.
Yeah, I'm just saying, though, like, whereas Alvernia, I felt like literally when you were walking down, you could have been high-fiving the parents because they were literally sitting from me to the end of this table away from the kids. And I just thought it was a much more intimate venue and a better experience when you were there. Now, is it your school? No, I get that. I understand that that's an issue. Like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight either.
We appreciate your previous
Last year I
experience.
went to one in the auditorium at the school auditorium. Same thing. We were close to the kids. So
Yeah, I think you
there's
told
all
the
different
students.
venues.
Let the senior class decide. I mean,
We have a facility. It's ours. It's paid for. It's beautiful. I haven't heard, and our maintenance guy said he's okay with the sound. I just haven't heard one compelling argument to not have it at our state.
Wait, I thought
No, I think we already resolved that. We're just talking the backup date. The backup, if it rains and we have to go
I thought
inside.
we talked about the auditorium and the gym and the simulcast. There's 260 seats in the auditorium where at least the primary parents could, the primary ticket holders, you can have like a primary and a secondary ticket. Maybe have two green
And that way
tickets
you
where
don't
you
have
got to
a-
move inside, they get the
So
primary
would
seat.
the kids be in here graduating, and then you'd have
The high school.
I mean,
No, we're
high
saying
school
moving in-
auditorium, and then you'd
yeah.
have the auxiliary auditorium as how would you,
The gymnasium.
so the kids,
How many seats do we
You
have?
could give the kids.
right.
You determine the number of tickets each student gets. You color code the tickets. All the tickets are good for the stadium. If it had to be moved inside, this color goes into the auditorium, this color goes into the gym.
And all the
I
graduates,
think
two guests would
You're
fit
really
in the
asking for
auditorium.
a fiasco if it does rain and you have to.
Well, here's the fiasco. We schedule it for the stadium for 6 o'clock at night. The forecast is clear, and at 6:15 it starts raining. We're going to drive to Alvernia?
well, the forecast wouldn't be clear. I mean, come on, our weather companies they call for rain. You know you got a rain date, and then you book for either inside or outside. It's not like 1 minute it's clear, and the next minute you got
You cancel on that
a
date.
weather
If
event
they're calling
coming
for a
through.
50% chance of thunderstorms, I think you make the call to have it.
You call it and you
Call
go.
it in advance.
Yeah. You don't wait till last minute.
I just think if you do have a rain date and you're inside, you're going to get a lot of complaints. Families have to split up and go this way and that way, and then if you're stuck in the gym with no or very limited AC, I just think you're asking for.
Are your gyms air
would be my
conditioned?
idea of
It's a worst case scenario. I think people.
Usually they're lousy if they
Well,
handle
with
the
worst case
worst.
scenario. Graduations, it's about the graduation. It's not really about the accommodation.
Well, I don't need to know tonight. I just needed to hear what your feeling is on this, and everyone's extremely passionate on how they feel. We will work with our senior class.
Extremely passionate?
Well, yeah, pretty.
I'm just trying to give you both sides of the argument. I mean, I'll
think-
go wherever it's being held, and so long as the senior class and their families are happy, I'm happy. I mean,
Well, I think everybody has taken a stand on it. They pretty much know what they want.
Well, not, we voted, whoever wins, wins.
Are you going to discuss Governor Corbett's budget?
I'm going to let that up to Mr. Seldenridge.
I am going to need direction with regards to Alvernia, though, because they have been in touch with me already
Yeah,
with regards to the dates and whether or not we would be utilizing them. So I don't want to hold them hanging.
I think this was probably a stupid question, but I assume if we have that book, we don't use them as a backup, we still pay that fee, right?
I'm quite sure that it's probably going to be.
It's a stupid question, but
They're not asking for payment up front. They're not asking me to sign anything, but they are holding a date. They came back to me because they knew that we were a user last year of their venue. So,
As a courtesy to them, I think we owe them the decision.
right, and I quite honestly,
Mrs. Torsha is the mother of a senior this year. So she may or may not be with us that evening.
we're going to hold ours advisor outside, so.
I'm sorry, you're holding it where?
I said ours will be wiser outside.
Outside, thank you
I'm
very
sure that's
much.
where they'll be having their graduation to start with.
I mean, I think my preference would be that obviously we do it at our stadium first, provided we have a sound system capable of making sure everybody can hear everything clearly. And then secondly, as a backup, I would suggest the Alvernia site, unless I can be convinced that our gymnasium is the better venue. But that's just my opinion on it.
Well, we're not voting on this now anyway, though.
Well,
but she needs a date, and sooner or later Alvernia is going to come knocking for a deposit.
Should we vote at the next meeting? Can we vote at the meeting following this? 2 weeks? Do we just want to do a straw poll and give direction?
I was going to check with the seniors.
And I don't like that idea.
All right.
And I'll tell you why I don't like the idea. I don't care which way the seniors vote. If 5 board members vote the other way, it's gone the other way. So,
okay.
Why would you ask for a vote and then tell them thank you very much, but we're not going to do what you wanted to do anyway?
It's not my graduation. I think it's the seniors' graduation. So, if they want to have it here, then we have it here. If they don't want to have it here, they want to have it somewhere else, then we work towards that end.
I mean, we have a facility, we have the capacity, and we'll save $1,500 minimal. And
over 10 years, it's $15,000.
Well, much like the other discussions we've had, we've sort of beaten this to death. Do we want to vote on it or don't we?
Let's vote tonight.
Let's vote.
I say let's vote.
You want to vote now or at the voting meeting?
At the voting meeting.
Okay, we'll vote at the voting meeting. You're going to hold off on the Governor Corbett's budget?
Because Mr. Seldenridge, in his presentation this evening, is addressing that.
Okay.
So I don't want to be redundant.
Just a comment for the curriculum instruction report, as I was remiss at the beginning of the meeting in not stating that we're having an executive session after this meeting to discuss personnel. Curriculum and instruction, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. We met prior to this meeting, and that's going to be our pattern moving forward. We'll be meeting at 6 o'clock. Yes, 6 o'clock prior to these meetings. And we discussed a variety of topics. We are coming forward with one recommendation tonight, and that is to approve the courses that are being offered in the high school. So the administration can go forward and set up a schedule, and that will be coming in the schedule. That was the first item we discussed. We are not yet going to approve the full course selection guide because there's some questions about credits and trying to incentivize more students to take classes as opposed to sitting in study halls. So that's something we're going to follow up on, but the courses are ready to be approved. The only change from last year is that they're adding 2 AP classes, and those classes are
AP Music Theory, AP European History.
Yes, AP European History and AP Music Theory. Another reminder that was discussed is that current policy states that if there is any class where enrollment is less than 10 students, it must be reported to the superintendent, and the board must approve that to allow that course to run. And I don't remember ever voting on that in the past, so I reminded everybody in the meeting that that is policy, and we'll need to vote to approve those courses if they're to be offered.
How are those courses being paid for? Is it an additional expense to the budget?
I do not believe it is. I believe it's cost neutral. We talked about that tonight. No recommendation came that would. I'd actually just like to double check with Mr. Hankel. It's cost neutral, correct?
Staff-wise, it's cost neutral. The only cost that we do incur would be any books, but from what I'm hearing, they utilize present material.
Okay. So the answer is it's cost neutral. Of course, my view is that whenever we can add AP classes at no cost, it's good for students. That's just my view. Item 2, we discussed the adoption of a new school district grading scale, and this is something that was brought to us by a parent and by a teacher, and it was echoed by the administration. I think we discussed this at a previous meeting. For the sake of the new members, and if we didn't, I'd be happy to update. We currently have a 7-point grading scale, and so if you have a 91 in a class, you have a B. Other districts, and I believe most districts in the county, I could be wrong there, they utilize a 10-point grading scale. So if you have a 90 in, for example, Governor Mifflin, you have an A, whereas in Daniel Boone, if you have a 91, you have a B. So it was discussed that puts our students at disadvantage when applying for scholarships because there are many scholarships that require a certain grade, and even when getting into college. So that's going to be a recommendation coming in the pipeline to the board probably next month. We discussed moving the 5th grade from the elementary school to the middle school, and that's something that Mrs. Torcha is investigating, and that can result in significant cost savings for the district just by moving that grade level to this building. And still being discussed at this point, but recommendation will be coming forward. We also discussed a proposal to give PE credit for athletics and band. It's being investigated legally to see if it's possible. I know it was discussed in the past, and there are some questions and concerns about whether it can be done, especially in light of the co-curricular debate of a few years ago that said you can't charge an activity fee so it's going to be counted for the grade. So that's being vetted by the solicitor. Then finally, Mr. Hankel shared his 5-year vision for his programs at the high school and the departments, and we're going to be receiving a report by email. I believe we've actually already received it about where they want to go in the future and how they can envision a stronger program that we can utilize a stronger curriculum in that building. So that was our meeting tonight. We're going to be meeting, I believe, is it February 10th or February 13th? Whatever the next curriculum of the whole, committee of the whole, we're going to have a committee meeting at 6 o'clock before that. And of course, we're going to be bringing a motion during the special voting meeting to approve the courses only moving forward next year, so the students can begin registering and the administration can begin looking to see how many students have registered, and if need be, they can start reducing those classes or bring them to the board.
Are there any changes in that course curriculum that we need to be aware of?
There was one change from the copy that was forwarded to the board. It was a very minor change. It was just striking out in the yearbook class. There was a lengthy discussion about the merits of having a class through a yearbook, and it was a little bit, the wording was vague as to whether you had to enroll in grade 9 yearbook 1 versus grade 10 yearbook 2. So we just struck out grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, and called it yearbook 1, yearbook 2, yearbook 3. But other than that, it's the same that you received. It was a very minor change. It didn't affect anything substantially.
Okay.
Yeah, Mrs. White would like to add something.
I just wanted to add the 5th grade move to middle school would also inherently save the band program for 5th grade because they would be absorbed in the middle school band. Right? If there was any changes.
She can't hear you.
Sorry. The move of 5th grade to middle school would essentially secure their participation in band because they would just be absorbed into the band program at the middle school.
And that was another benefit that was discussed.
And the 5-year vision for these a la carte courses, if this comes about, utilizes some of the time that is being spent in study halls now, so it's revenue neutral.
And the direction that was given to the administration was to try to ensure that any suggestion they bring forward is revenue neutral, or it was requested that they bring back ideas that can advance our curriculum while saving money. And hopefully that will be.
Board comments or questions?
Sounds good.
I was remiss in not asking the public if they had comments about the superintendent's report. So any public comment on the superintendent's report or on the curriculum and instruction report, please come down.
Hi. Karen Slattery, Union Township. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to go back. So, I guess...
Mrs. Slattery, pull that microphone closer to you, please.
Yes, you can.
Can't you?
Nope. I'll just shout. And on the topic of microphone, we're worried about hearing in the auditorium for graduation, but we can't even hear you here. So I guess we should all lean forward. To BEC, I guess the things that cross my mind is what else is beyond life expectancy that we didn't know about? And that you take that into consideration. Thank you. It seems like often we make decisions and then we find out after, maybe there's growth, maybe there's something else. So, and the other thing is Mr. Soderman
actually was going to be a topic at the facilities meeting, which was canceled for snow, so.
When's it rescheduled for?
Monday.
I was waiting for you to finish before we address the
Another thing is, again, kindergarten, that brings my mind back to the budget, and I think we're looking at roughly 80% towards teachers' benefit and pay. So what I've never heard of the meeting, forgive me if I missed it, but teachers' benefit and pay is a rule in our budget. Do we ever have any considerations in giving back? And do we have any representation from the union? Is there anything that anybody has to bring to the table from a teacher or union perspective of how to bring some of these courses or kindergarten or cuts back? Sorry, that's not clear.
At the end of your...
That's the end for now. I'll be back later.
As far as redistricting, Mrs. Slattery, as Mrs. Twardowski said, it was scheduled to be talked about then, and it will be talked about. So that's an issue that's on our minds too. As for what the teachers are willing to discuss, we have a negotiation committee and we have an administration dealing with the teachers. When they have something to report, we'll report it.
At our meeting, we can have a conversation with the teachers about that. So.
Yeah, it is being discussed, but nothing's been decided yet.
Okay, that's fine. The public, we don't always do that. And again, just to reiterate, the BEC and the boiler, the range of numbers.
I thought you said you were done.
Well, I was just making sure that you were going to address that.
I would just like to also add that there's nothing stopping members of the public from contacting the teachers union as well. And that's definitely an option.
Okay.
So I'll just throw that out there.
Well, I would like to throw that out, I guess, because then to the Bleacher Foundation, and I was different in this work, but, on the website, if you could maybe put a link to a letter that a parent could actually download and take to their employer.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we make sure that happens?
What about giving consideration to finding out the life expectancy of the other systems at Birdsboro?
I think we have that.
Like not just the HVAC system.
Well, one of the things we had talked about at the last board meeting was getting a reserve study done, and we talked about that at length. And of course, the facilities committee was on the agenda for the facilities committee, but they hadn't met yet. So that's
for Birdsboro.
for the entire school district.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Building and grounds, as you just heard, the facilities meeting. Oh.
The only thing I want to point out to you is your budget meetings this evening, the preparing conference is being rescheduled. So this is so an FYI, if you have somebody on Thursday preparing conferences that are canceled, you will, the teachers and all other parents will continue to be at their conferences. So just,
We're not hearing what you're saying.
Oh, I can be loud. Parent conferences, if it's snow on this Thursday, will be rescheduled for the 27th from 6 to 9 p.m. So your teachers and your parents may be upset.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Building and grounds, as you just heard, the facilities meeting was canceled due to weather.
I would like to reschedule it for next Monday at 6 o'clock. If we have committee members that are able to attend that. Right now it's just myself and Ms. Dugan, and she did say she was available. So I'd like to have it, if you would appoint me as president or chairperson of that committee, then I would have it at 6 on Monday, and I'd have rec at 7:30.
I did appoint you. You weren't here.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Any public comment on the building and grounds? Seeing none, finance? You want to discuss the course approvals?
No, that's just routine.
They'll be on for the next meeting.
It's just a routine.
It's a routine item. It'll be on for for the 24th for approval.
Okay, so do we have to discuss any of this?
Yeah. Budgetary transfers are here in your folder for $980. I believe that's the only one.
I have a quick question on budget transfers. I believe in the audit, that was an area of concern that was raised, just the number of transfers we were making. And when I see an amount like $980, again, I'm no expert in finance, but that's a relatively small amount, $53 million budget. And if our audit is telling us that we're making too many transfers, maybe I'm wrong. Did the audit mention something about the number of transfers? Or I thought I read that we made a lot.
Typically, the ones I look out for are when we're actually switching categories altogether. But if you're in, a lot of times what they'll do is they drop it into what I call a higher level bucket, and then from there they transfer them down into a lower level bucket within that same category. But if it's switching from here to there, that kind of raises my eyebrows sometimes. And Mr. Boyer can speak to those things for you, though.
I think it might have been during the presentation to the auditor that might have been communicated. Are these major, like, are you shifting from opposite accounts?
I believe that transfers from technology. It's actually just covering, I believe, this is fine. This is shifting from one carrier to another, so it's
okay. I just wanted to check.
We're actually going through and just making sure all the accounts are in line right now. The office is working on that by the end of the week, just to make sure all the budget accounts are in line where they should be.
Okay, thank you.
Again, so next month there might be a couple more budget transfers on,
but then
I don't think there'll be anything that the auditor will raise an eyebrow.
All right, thank you.
Item C on approving private bids. Is there any discussion on that?
These will come forward at the next meeting for approval.
I have a quick question on it. I know the BCIU does bids, and they economies of scale and all that. I know they get a lot of good rates. Is there a reason? Are we going with BCIU with these bids, or
the BCIU bid was already put out? They basically they changed their quantity volume that they needed. They require basically a quantity of 25 to go out. We actually did some extensive supply counting ourselves within the district, and we were able to estimate about $5,000 to about $5,500 within our own supply closets, essentially. And we actually reduced the bid. Our general supply bid is very hard now from where it's out there. So,
okay. As long as we're just doing, let's make sure we do that option out there.
Yeah, it is. And we do utilize the BCIU right now. This is other bids that you have in mind.
All right, thank you. Speaking of BCIU.
Is there anything to discuss on the BCIU budget?
For the sake of the new members, it might be good to explain what it is, and I'd be happy to give an overview of what I can. The BCIU is an agency that serves mainly Berks County, but also other districts around Pennsylvania. There's, I believe, 27 units around the state, and the one that's assigned to us is the BCIU. And they get the vast amount of their funding from federal and state sources, and that's all clearly laid out in this book that you have in front of you. However, every year they are required to get a certain amount from local districts, and that's what we're going to be voting on at the end of the month. This rate has not gone up in the time I've been on the board, so it's not even reduced in our share. I don't think it went up before, in the immediate years before I was on the board. They do try to keep that rate low that we are paying directly, but they do get the vast amount of their funding from the federal government and state government. That's just a very, very brief overview. I would encourage you to contact the BCIU if you have any specific questions about their budget, but that's a very quick overview for you. we get a lot of service that just Dr. Sanker or Mrs. Torsia maybe can provide better. There's a lot of support services and training for demonstrators. That might be something.
Part of our training. We have not had any new board member induction at all since our other directors just came on in December. We had 2 vacancies immediately in January. So we've held off on any kind of in-servicing of our new directors. And part of the in-service process that we'll be doing, I'll explain to you what the intermediate services are and how they benefit the school district. So right now I could just say that Mr. Kurtz did a nice job in explaining the function of the intermediate unit. They're there to provide services for the county, the school districts in the county of Berks. Sometimes there are multiple counties involved with the intermediate unit. I believe this is just Berks, but I'm not.
We offer a lot of services. Well, we run, I think, the PAT program.
You sell services across the state?
Yes.
Okay. But do you service just the school districts in Berks County? That's your primary mission. And in many cases, they provide special education services for those students so multiply involved with their disability that the school district cannot provide the needs for that child. And they will assist us in helping that child meet the individual educational plan. So that's one of the large functions that they do. Plus providing us their conduit from the state Department of Education directly to the superintendent and to Mrs. Torsia in the curriculum and to our business managers. So I'll have to use my teacher voice, but they're very, very helpful to us.
It wasn't a frivolous question.
I didn't think it was.
In the interest of time, there's a lot to learn about.
Okay, we'll take time and really study it. Okay.
The next item is to accept a $50 donation from Delaware Valley Orienteering Association, and we very much appreciate the $50 donation. So thank you, Delaware Valley Orienteering Association. The audit, we still can't accept. We still haven't had questions answered, have we?
No, we have not. And Mr. Boyer had given me the contact information for the auditor right before our finance committee meeting. I tried to reach out to him last week, but quite frankly have not followed up with it with the weather. I've been jammed. So I will do that this week and see if I can't get a hold of somebody there.
Okay. And now for the...
Actually, before we get to that, I'd like to kind of give everybody a recap on the finance committee meeting before we get into the budget presentation. We did talk about our food service contract with Sodexo again. Our meal counts have been dropping from one year to the next. At this point, we believe that they've flatlined and they're not getting any worse. This is particularly important because the revenue that's generated from food sales goes to support our cafeteria fund, which is what we use for capital purchases in a school district, things like ovens and dishwashers and things of that nature. So that fund has been steadily depleting over time because kids aren't buying the meals that we're providing to them because of the federal, what is it called? Healthy, what is it called again? Mark?
Healthy Hunger, it's TASCA, Healthy Hunger, Free Reduce.
It's the free. It's the federal program that we get subsidies for, and the way they decide what a healthy meal is something that the students don't particularly care for. So they've been moving to a la carte or just not buying meals anymore at our school district, and so we've been trying to work with Sodexo, which is our food service provider, and figure out ways that we can change the menu to either entice or incentivize students to buy the meals here again. Additionally, we've started looking at actually getting out of the federal program altogether at our high school because we feel that may be restricting us more than it needs to, and we may be doing better off on our own. We have one more year with our Sodexo contract, and they're supposed to be coming in at the next Finance Committee meeting on the 18th to discuss where we are with the food service contract in our budget year to date. We also reviewed our debt situation in the school district. We talked a little bit about our swap, its current valuation, and more importantly, for the benefit of the new board members, when we engaged in the swap, $1.2 million was set aside from that transaction in order to fund deficiencies where we were underwater in terms of interest payments. And for whatever reason, that fund was never tapped, even though it was utilized for that purpose. And to date, we've spent an additional $330,000 in interest payments for having engaged in the swap. The swap has been underwater ever since interest rates moved south. And it's about $2 million, $2.6 million or $2.7 million underwater right now.
Yeah.
So we have a long ways to go before this thing turns around and heads in the other direction. So one of the suggestions from the Finance Committee that we want the board to consider, we're making a recommendation, is to utilize $330,000 out of $1.2 million fund to go back into our budget this year to refund the school district for the interest payments that it had been making out of its operating expense over the last 6 years, 7 years. We think that will help our budget situation this year going forward as well. So at the voting meeting in 2 weeks from now, that would be something we want on the agenda. Let's see what else. Additionally, we were going through the bonds and payment schedules and amortization schedules for our debt service. That's all on the website. We directed Mr. Boyer to make sure that a particular spreadsheet was on there that showed the individual bond payments, both principal and interest, and then a column at the end showing what the total payments were on an annual basis, so everybody can see what those are. Because we have different bond issues that expire at different times, but our bonds payments remain the same. Our debt level service remains the same throughout the life of the loans through 2034. Last, Mark, I'm sorry, Mr. Boyer, I sent to you the PSDALF letter that we received, I think it was a year and a half ago, explaining what that fund was. Were you able to put that up on the website? Or?
I'll get that up. Last week was a little rough.
Yeah, no doubt. One of the other issues we talked about was booster financial statements with the requirements. State law requires that our booster organizations are supposed to be providing the school district with their financial statements so we understand what they're spending their money on so we do not run into Title IX complications or issues. My understanding is a request was made from our business office to the booster organizations to provide those. They have not been provided to date because Dr. Otto, at some point last fall, said hold off on that. We were going to have the booster organizations come to the meeting on February 18th and hopefully bring their financial statements so we can get that issue put to rest and start moving forward sort of hand in glove with what they're trying to achieve and what we're trying to get done. The other thing that came up at the Finance Committee meeting that I had heard, and I guess a couple other board members had heard it as well, is that coaches may or may not be getting compensated by booster organizations, and we want to make sure we understand what's going on there and that we don't have any collective bargaining issues as far as that's concerned. So hopefully we'll have an answer for that on the 18th as well. We talked about the budget, the current budget. I guess we're going to get into that discussion shortly, but my understanding is that we are $464,000 under in reserves and $1.6 million less than our projected expenses, making it essentially we're $1.1 million to the good on our current budget fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay. And that hasn't changed in the last week and a half? Okay. All right. And we also discussed the school district had purchased a model last year that we thought would be helpful to the board and the public in understanding how our budget works and how we can plan for our budget. And it was some of the assumptions that were starting to be plugged in last year that we kind of held off with Mr. Seldenridge's time on the board. He developed his own model, and we'd like to see the model that we purchased being utilized going forward as well. We talked about middle school sports. We heard that earlier tonight with one of the applicants for the board seat, and whether or not some certain community organizations, whether it's Amity AC or it's Blazer Midget Sports or whatever, may be able to take that liability or cost from the school. We need to do a cost analysis on that, the revenues that we receive from activities versus the cost that we actually spend, and whether that's a revenue neutral or how much that activity costs. What else? Redistricting. We talked about redistricting the school district, Ms. Slattery, at the Finance Committee meeting as well. We discussed putting together a calendar and chart of decisions and variables that need to be made and working backwards. So if we were to implement a redistricting plan in, let's say, 2015-16, at what point do certain decisions need to be made by the school district to put that plan in place and work backwards from there so we understand what our time frames are for making certain decisions. If certain buildings are being closed and whatnot, there's a procedure for doing that, as we all witnessed last year with APC, 90 days cooling off period, a certain number of days before, notifying your employees before they're terminated, and so on and so forth. So we need to put together that plan. And last but not least, we discussed, actually two other things. We discussed River Rock, and we were trying to get an update on where they were with their enrollments and how that's going to impact the revenues that we receive from them. And we mentioned putting forward a capital reserve study and pro forma. So the first step would be to get the reserve study done, and then we'd incorporate those numbers into a pro forma that we could then input into our overall budget and build that model out over the next 20 years so we can see what obligations we have going forward in terms of our capital needs. And last but not least, we were looking to put forward a Finance Committee 12-month calendar. I'm looking to put forward a best business practices in terms of the culture in the school district itself, and we can start at the committee level and maybe work our way up to a board level where at any point in time anybody can look at the Finance Committee calendar and see certain decisions that have to be made by the Finance Committee in terms of making recommendations to this board, and that those decisions don't change from year to year, and so we can flesh out the agenda for the calendar so that stays in place. Obviously other things come up from time to time, but I really want to get this thing set up so that certain things don't slip through the cracks that we ought to be looking at. In the past, we weren't looking at meal prices, we weren't looking at other things that really should have been on our radar. And as board members turn over, we don't want that institutional memory and that culture to leave with the board member that was in charge of it. And that's pretty much it. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. Yes, Ms. Nunn.
You mentioned redistricting.
Yes.
Did you say 15, 16?
Well, I think to try to put in place a redistricting plan for 14, 15 would be a little unrealistic at this point in time in the calendar year. So I'm not even suggesting it for 15, 16. What I wanted to understand is what is the process for redistricting? What are the decisions that need to be made? And in what sort of time frame is that? Do those decisions need to be built into a calendar so we understand what we're supposed to be doing as a board and what specific committees ought to be doing to help that decision-making process move forward. And if there's certain costs that are associated with this, that at the Finance Committee level at least, we are preparing ourselves to put that due diligence into our calendar so we can start working on those things as well.
Okay, so are you basically saying that we're not planning on any redistricting for 14, 15? Or is that, wait, I'm not done. Are you saying you're not planning it or it can't be done because of the time factor?
We're a board, so that's not my decision to make. I think from a time standpoint that I don't think there's enough time to talk about redistricting the school district. From what I've heard from speaking about this issue with Dr. Otto in the past, to do that in 3 or 4 months. I think that this is going to take some time to plan out.
Dr. Sanker, what is the time frame to do redistricting?
It would be, we should be moving on it right now if we were going to do that, because we have to advertise, we need to, there's like 90-day waiting period. And honestly,
if you were going to do that for 14, 15?
Correct. It would have to be done now.
We're not prepared to do that
and
this year.
I've got to tell you that from what I'm hearing, we need to do a master plan of where things are and where we're going, because I'm hearing that we've done a lot of moving and closing and lots of decisions been made over the last couple of years, and that maybe since we have a very new green board here, with the exception of a few holdovers who are here to provide us with the history. But I think this is it's an opportunity, if we're going to do this, to really do some studying of where we want to go as a district. And financially, we don't want boilers not working in Birdsboro to be the reason why we make a decision to close it. All right, and no matter what you do with the Birdsboro building, you have to have a furnace in that building. Whether you close it or you sell it or you keep it or whatever, you're going to have heat in the building. So I think that if we rush into redistricting at this point, that we haven't given ourselves time enough to study it.
If I may, there's two separate issues here. We do not need 90 days to redistrict. I've talked to Mr. Supers about that. Dr. Otto's going away for it. And he said the only thing you need to do to redistrict is for the board to make a decision to redistrict. Obviously, you'd have to study who goes where, but you don't need 90 days and all that. That's what you need to close the building.
What, 90 days to close?
You'd have to make a decision to close the building, announce it to the public, hold public hearings, have the 90-day cooling off period, and then vote again to make a final decision. That's to close the building permanently. Redistricting is a different story. You don't need all that to redistrict. So there is planning involved. I mean, you can't just make a snap decision, but you don't have that same time frame. Not to disagree with Dr. Sanger, but I disagree with Dr. Sanger.
There's more to it.
I think the cost of the boilers is a very important factor in what we do. Yes, you need some heat in the building. We have a boiler that's working, even if the other one can't be repaired. But the question becomes, we're talking about the possibility of closing the building. Do we want to spend $2 million, $500,000, or $2.5 million on a building we know we're going to close eventually, especially when I've heard from our maintenance manager and people that were on the board previously that we closed the wrong building. So I think that all has to be considered.
Well, this is why I asked, because if it sounds like we are not going to be able to operate that building next year unless we do repairs and plan on the total $2.5 million in repairs in the near future.
I agree with
and work it into the budget. So if we're either going to commit to a $2.5 million outlay over the next couple of years, because if you're going to put $500,000 in, you might as well figure that in the next consecutive 3 years, you're going to put the $2.5 million in. Because if you're going to invest $500,000 in, I do beg to differ with you about the heating system, because depending on what the building is used for, you can do a split system per office, and we wouldn't have the situation that we have over at ABC with somebody taking over a small portion of the building and having to heat the whole building so that they can use a small portion of it, which costs us money, when they're not occupying the entire building. We do have to heat the whole building to some degree, don't we, for them to use it, because it's not zoned.
I think it's a decision we're going to have to make soon, not tonight.
Okay. Can I just say, I think there are a lot of these little things that we keep talking about that we could talk about for 45 minutes each for weeks, but we have to look at it as a whole at some kind of committee level. But I think too, rather than I think part of the reason the district is in the state that the district is in, because for 10 years people made decisions without looking at a master plan, without doing 5-year projections, without doing 10-year projections, and it almost sounds though this board, as a board, we're starting to do the same thing. We're starting to veer onto decisions because of specific instances, and maybe we just need to step back and let some of the committees, we have new board members, we have new committee members, let some of the committees do their work and bring it back and look at it as a whole instead of just trying to move in direction and then turn and then turn and then turn.
On the master plan.
Well, I think the master, when we finally have a 5-year budget, within the last year and a half. I mean, we're finally getting some of these things. If some of these things had been done, if a study like Mr. Seldenridge's plan had been done with the enrollment rates 5 years ago, 8 years ago, we might not be where we're at now. We might not have put money into Amity that we just closed. You know, so I know we're trying to save money and we're trying not to spend money. I guess all I'm doing is cautioning that sometimes you have to slow down and not be reactionary. That's all.
I'm not.
I didn't mean you specifically. I'm just saying in general.
I understand that, but I was just throwing this out because basically speaking, as I said, we looked at the boilers over there. It was a $200,000 bill, and then the last meeting that I made the request, it jumped from $200,000, which didn't sound bad at all, to $2.5 million, and that's something that we have to plan for.
Well, look, clearly, I mean, I deal with these systems all the time, and if I had $1 for every time an engineer told me I had to replace the whole system, I wouldn't be sitting here anymore. Okay, so I get what Trane did. They came in, they gave the full Monty. I understand that, as Mr. Seldenridge had discussed earlier. The boilers need to be replaced. We should be getting estimates for replacing just the boilers. You can work on pneumatic systems later. You can work on, all types of digital controls and things of that nature. Sometimes these things will last for years and years and years, well beyond what we're discussing. I think you got to give the Facilities Committee an opportunity to get an engineer in here to do a reserve study so we understand what those variables are, when those items are coming due. And we ought to be doing a facilities space planning issue, which we discussed about as well, in terms of which buildings we've got excess capacity. That's all part of a redistricting plan, I think. And I think we're all talking about the same thing. From a finance committee perspective, I wasn't even trying to get into this issue of the boilers, and I think it's a tail wagging the dog. It's symptomatic of a bigger issue, which is we need to take a comprehensive approach to our school district, understand what our facility needs are, understand what our student needs are. Our population is completely shifted around from where it was a number of years ago. And so we need to understand where those kids are. We need to talk to our busing company. It's a process. And I understand you can redistrict just like that. We just need to make the decision to do it. I'm trying to figure out what is the process. Once you've made the decision, how do you go about it in a smart, logical, methodic way so we make a good decision at the end of the day?
Well, this is why I asked the questions as to how long it takes for this to be implemented.
I think look, clearly when we closed the building, we started with the school date, okay? The first day of school. That's when you start. Because you have to work back from there, because your collective bargaining contract determines how far in advance you have to notify your employees, okay? So now you're moving back into July. And then you have a cooling off period that you have to go through in terms of closing a building and public hearings and all that stuff. So, yeah, you can get it done in March or April, but you really ought to start the process in January, February, which is what we did last year.
Okay, well, that was my question.
All right, let me ask a question to simplify things. Let's say we decide not to replace the boilers, okay? And so if you decide not to replace the boilers, you're all but making the decision on Birdsboro. What date do you need to know to notify your employees?
I can't give it to you tonight.
Employees need to be, I believe, notified 30 days. I can't remember. I think it's 30 days prior to the start of the school year. Otherwise, you end up having to pay them for the entire year.
But if you're not replacing the boilers, then you're in essence closing the building. So then you'd have to do the 90-day advertising, right? So it's not really just the teachers; it's the whole process.
And that's what I'm saying. So if we decided not to replace the boilers, I hear what you're saying about process. And I hear what you're saying about estimates. But we can't wait for you to get estimates in May, because then it's too late to do all this.
That was basically my question, was the timeline that you need for a decision. Because it's like, if it's too late now, then we have,
lose that option.
We lose the option. Do we have to hurry up and get estimates and make decisions?
I think the drop dead date would be sometime in the beginning of April.
Okay. So we can wait. Okay, well, that's an answer. So we have due diligence. We have a meeting with the facilities and things. I mean, I'm just looking, again, as you said, don't want to hurry up and do something rash, because there's a lot of money involved here. There's a lot of students. It's just, if you close the school, creating a whole lifestyle for a community. And it's not a small thing, but we shouldn't get people riled up, and I hope whoever's out there from the press is not going to say we're closing schools because that makes a headline. But we are looking at a process here as to how to spend the money that's going to be most beneficial to our students, because they're our product here. We're in business to put out a product. The product we're putting out is good educated, well-educated children that can go on to make good education.
That's why I was laughing.
Well, our product is good education, but it's well-educated students. So, excuse me. But the thing is that, we want to make sure that our students can go on to do what they want to do in life, whether they want to go to college or they want to get any kind of job that they want to have in life to succeed. And if we can't do that, we can't do anything. We're totally.
I'd like to add that with the budget issues we're facing this year, if we're entertaining the option of closing down Birdsboro and it could save us money, and if we're talking about doing it this year, next year, or the year after, if we've established that there's room in the district, even though redistricting may be a large undertaking, if it could save us a significant amount of money, that will not just be this year, but it'll be next year, it'll be the year after, as opposed to paying that money now and just kicking the can down the road next week. So I know, it's my view that we could have shut down ABC a year earlier than we did. We would have saved significant money that would be in our budget now if we did that. So if it's possible, I think it's something we should do. That's just my view on it, and I know we don't want to get into a discussion on closing the building right now. It's not on the agenda.
I think we just did.
And I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying, there's a big picture. I mean, there's going to be transportation. Right now, kids walk to Birdsboro. You're going to have so there's a lot of components, and there's not a whole lot of time to pull it all together. That's all I'm saying.
Real quick question, Andrew, on your report. The River Rock enrollment report, did you actually get numbers?
I haven't gotten the numbers yet, no.
They're supposed to give them to us at the start of every month, I think, from the
I
contract.
think we got the original Mark.
We're more looking at what they're projecting and what they're going to do to bring, what their plan is to bring students to the facility other than being students, based upon the agreement we have. The more students we have enrolled, the more we technically avoid costs. And I believe Mrs. Torch will be meeting with the representative from River Rock very soon, and they'll be discussing that point. She'll report back to me, and then I will report to the finance.
Yeah, I mean, currently they're obviously not
They're not
enrolled.
open yet? There's nobody there yet?
No, they're paying us rent right now in the space.
They're just preparing it?
And getting it ready.
Cars back there.
Right now, we're avoiding 2 placements at the facility in Wilson School District. We have enrollments there now. We've had
7.
In and out. So right now we're avoiding, as of January 1, we're avoiding 2 placement costs. Yes, it will move
it's about $70,000 in savings.
It will move
to
to
the school
3
district.
when they move into the facility in August per the contract.
Okay.
If that's satisfied, it's 10 o'clock. I'd like to get to the budget report.
Yep.
Want to do the budget report?
Are we going down
Yes, because Connor, can you put that? Yes, we are.
It's too late for the board members to change their minds, so.
You didn't have anything else to do tonight, did you?
You're right. That's
Then I ate at like 4 o'clock.
Do you want this on?
Yes.
Okay.
is generally Daniel Boone can apply for the special education and the pension. This year, however, though, our special education costs did not go up enough to apply for special education exception, and so the only one that you can apply for is pension. In a few years, once we get through the pension fight, that's an exception that will go away, most likely. So the total millage that the board is allowed to go up for 2014-15 is 1.15 mils, or close to 4%. The forecast, this is an important factor in your discussion tonight. You talk about long-range planning. School districts under Act 1 must not only consider the decision that they make on tax revenue for the immediate budget, but also how it's going to impact the budget beyond. Because if the average, if you look at that last bullet point, if the average is 2.5 to 3%, that means as a board you never can go beyond that unless you have exceptions. And some years you may have exceptions, and some years you may not. And you've had tax increases in the past that were higher, much higher than 2.5 or 3%. You won't be able to do that. And so long-range planning is an important aspect. Dr. Sanger referred to the Ready to Learn grant in the state budget. One of the things that the governor presented to the legislature, to the Commonwealth on February 4th was, instead of the PA block grant, they're replacing it with what's called a Ready to Learn block grant. If you look at, there's 4 tiers associated with basically the scores that the school district has. Relates to the SPP scores, the school performance profile, and all the schools in Daniel Boone are tier 2 or tier 3. And you can see some, I don't know if you can read that, but most of the items, as you can see, relate to kindergarten, pre-kindergarten grades, pre-K to 3rd grade, STEM education, and so we don't know all the rules. In fact, we don't know any of the rules at this point. The state will be rolling this out over time. I'm sure Mrs. Torshire will be going to seminars that tell her how this money can be spent.
We're in tier 4.
Are we in tier 4?
Yes, I'm
Do you
sorry.
in tier 4?
Yeah.
Okay. I stand corrected. So we have tier 2, 3, 4. And so this is what they're rolling out. They're rolling it out, the increase in subsidy in the form of a grant. And there are political reasons for that, I'm sure, because it's a lot easier to adjust grants than it is subsidy. How does it all pan out for us? In January, we gave you what the estimate for our Pennsylvania block grant was $154,447. We increased basic education subsidy by 2% because that's historically what it is going up. Same with special education. And so we have a total in those 3 areas of $9,947,775. The PA block grant has basically been eliminated and replaced by the Ready to Learn grant. We got a substantial increase between those 2 grants. The Ready to Learn grant though that's only a one-time revenue source, it does have somewhat of an impact on the 2014-15 budget and the bottom line. All right, let's talk about the 2014-15 budget itself. Potential expenditure solutions that we currently have in the budget for 2014-15 are the ones listed. Department budget reductions of $366,000. These are the same things you saw in January. The River Rock Academy reduction in facility rent, basically by moving the administration center. In Amity, reduction in the bus routes and daycare runs, things like that. We believe there could be a reduction in transportation of at least 3 routes. We're hoping that we'll do have a meeting set up with them shortly, and we'll be able to narrow that down a little bit further. We have potential staffing and program adjustment savings of almost $1 million. Some of that has to do with the enrollment dropping. Obviously, that will involve some furlough and some reductions in the technology budget. We'll look at some of the budget detail. This is a pie graph which includes kindergarten and some of the sports programs put back into the budget. If you take kindergarten out of the sports programs, the pie chart doesn't change. It's just the whole pie shrinks. Percentages are the same. But what this, I think, does show you is the limitations you have as a board as far as discretionary funds without looking at the program. Because if you take the salaries, I'm sorry, this is in revenue, but when we get to the pie chart for expenditures, you'll see that we have very, very little as far as discretionary funds. What I wanted to show you in this is basically that 65% of Danny Boone's revenue comes from real budget, you can't really look at the budget without looking at the program. The bottom line. And I think some factors. Pension costs. No, actually, that's what we did this for. No problem with this now. These are basically expenditures with kindergarten and some sports, and then expenditures without kindergarten and without sports. Those are basically also under projections. Your pension costs, they will continue to skyrocket. You're sort of in the middle of the wave of pension costs. Again, this is something that's beyond your control. This is decided by Pennsylvania State Employees Retirement System. In 13-14, this year that you're currently in, your pension costs alone increased $1.4 million. 14-15, your pension costs, even with the drop in some positions, your costs are still going to go up $1.1 million. And next year, again, $1.1 million. Things begin to settle down in 16-17. There's $600,000 increase, and then by 17-18, you're pretty much over close to the top of the wave. And things will get a little bit easier. Again, as far as things that we're still looking at, it can have impact. Again, there are healthcare costs. This is the same list we had in January. Nothing has really changed, although we've been able to nail down state subsidy in much more detail. But again, even state subsidy in the governor's budget, we're assuming that the governor's budget will be passed. That's a political system, political process that takes well into May or June. So even that is somewhat of an unknown, but less of an unknown than it was a month ago. For a 0.81 mil increase, you're talking about $97 a year. You haven't had a mil tax increase for several years. If you divide that over 3, you can see the annual increase. Basically, do that in your head. 1 mil increase would be $119 per year, and your max at 1.15 would be $138 per year. That's with an average value of residential property of $119,738. What's interesting is that the 0.81 increase basically gets you kindergarten back in some of the sports programs. The numbers tie very closely together. Reduction in expenditures, use of fund balance, contractual concessions, that was talked about in the negotiations committee. Increase in revenues are all things that we will continue to look at, try to drive down, continue to drive down some of the costs of the 2014 budget. One thing that I want to look at, again, is the long-range projections. It's really difficult to, again, budget without knowing how this year's impact is going to affect, the following years. And you take all the data that we just went over, and basically, what
obviously, since this is the question still needs to get answered from our body. Finance committee doesn't make a recommendation about tapping into that spot balance to raise money back into the general fund. That's not included in this item.
That's correct. That's because that's a decision when we made that.
I have two questions. What are the assumptions that are being used looking at contracts or because our contract expires? How are we looking at these numbers? How are we incorporating a period where we don't even know what the contract is going to be? How are we doing that?
Good question. Yeah, the question was, how do you, what assumptions have been made for contracts going forward? I'm assuming you refer to the teacher's contract, which basically gives the teachers a 6% increase this year in 2014-15. The assumption that I made was 0% for 15-16 and 1% thereafter. So it's a very conservative assumption, but that's where contracts are headed because of the financial situation. It also includes several furloughs due to the enrollment dropping.
One other question. I know we're all tired, so I'll be brief. Does this take into account perhaps shutting down another building at all?
No, not yet at this point.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? I know there's a lot of numbers, a lot of data, but
You have 3 positions, 2 positions, 2 positions, so on and so forth, that you go through based on your calculation for enrollment.
correct.
So based on the calculation for enrollment, should we be looking at the total of the building, or are your assumptions based on the fact that, okay, those positions will be spread out in classes, so therefore the impact is bigger?
The assumption of closing the building has not been put in here. And so, yeah, you can realize more savings if the building is closed.
Obviously, I think that's, stating the obvious. I guess the question I have is, with your enrollment projections, which are part of these assumptions that are being made, furloughs, are those declining enrollments in the kindergarten, elementary years, or are those declining enrollments are the population bubble that's already in the system and moving out? You can see it across the board, it's maybe at the higher level.
Right. There is a bit of a bubble that is moving through. It's at the higher end, high school end right now, 10th grade. And so that's a factor. But the enrollment projections obviously take the survival rate of each grade and spread that across all the grades. That makes sense.
So with your enrollment projections, you could look at birth rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could look at your projections and take a look at what we would estimate our enrollment to be in those particular classes going forward. So we could estimate whether we would have to close the building.
Yeah.
Whether it's 2 years or 3 years.
I know when I did the enrollment projections, and that was several months ago, I believe 16, 17 was the year that I was estimating at that point that the building would definitely be closed. And we'll do some other things pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would like to see what that, when we get to our budget meeting at the end of the year, or at the end of this month, I think that's critical in terms of long-term planning, what we're doing with taxes and everything else, to see what that does to our cost curve, bring the cost curve down, and our pension liability in addition to that.
All right. Thank you.
Is there any public discussion, public comment on the budget presentation? Seeing none, we'll move on to personnel.
Were there edits to this?
Not for this agenda.
The edits go on the agenda.
For the special voting.
On the special voting.
You just asked, somebody had any.
It's for the next one.
Here.
That's on the voting, right?
Yes.
Okay, on this we have appointments. We have the professional.
For just routine, no,
Pardon?
regular appointments.
Is there any board comments on the appointments, on the extracurricular coaches? You can't. Now you can hear me. Is there any board comment on the professional appointments? On the coaches, I have a couple questions. I understand that we're going to vote on approving these people to be effective February 24th. And information I've been given is that some of them are already working.
We may have some of them may be doing some preseason drills, but their season hasn't started yet.
Yeah, I think that's all voluntary, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly, but we're voting to approve them to start working, and this has been a constant thing. My understanding is they're not supposed to start until we approve them. Is that not correct?
That was my understanding.
That's my understanding.
Technically,
well, not technically. They're either not supposed to or they are supposed to. So if they're not supposed to, why are they working?
Volunteer. I think what you say is it's unpaid, so are they working? I guess.
Then why are we approving them?
Because they will be working.
Should they have been approved as volunteers then?
I don't know.
Well, they probably should have been approved
in January.
At the last meeting.
Well, some of them started in November. The second one.
I don't think
11:45.
spring sports was November.
Sorry? No, but some of the spring sports and practice are having workouts for...
Already Board of
I was going to say, understand the sheet.
That's Board approved.
Yeah.
So why are they doing
They started this last week.
We don't have the attached, do we?
Yeah.
We do.
But that's my second question. Some of the ones listed as volunteers, I understand
Where the board documents are.
there's an intent to pay them.
I'm sorry, what? Can you repeat what you said?
I'm told that there's an intent to pay a couple of the volunteers.
Well, is that what we were hearing? They get paid out of the boosters or those special funds? That's what I think I'd heard from...
But policy 914, our policy says that the volunteers cannot be paid.
Correct.
So...
Well, I thought that was part of what we were trying to investigate.
We'll be discussing that at the finance committee meeting to find out what's wrong with that, I think.
Well, that's if they come, but I mean, we're going to be voting on approving these people. I don't want to approve them until we find out if we're in violation of the policy. We have a policy that says we have to approve them before they start working, and we have a policy that says they cannot be paid.
Well, what you're suggesting then is that if you're not going to vote to approve them, then they can't be working, right? And they won't work.
Volunteer.
They won't. Well, if they're volunteering, they're working.
The issue is we're not paying the volunteers, somebody else is. So you may still have the same thing, maybe volunteering.
I think the point Mr. Martino is trying to make is that why is this can't be an issue anymore. We need to get the administration to get these people approved before they begin to work, period. Not before the season starts.
I'm wondering if it's the tail wagging the dog, though. I mean, are these coaches calling up the administration and saying, or, we're going to start doing our preseason workouts in December. And if our administration's aware of that, then they need to be bringing it up for us to vote on in November. But if our administration is finding out about it in December, well, they've already started and we haven't voted on it. So
I think that the last, it was the the last meeting because I was sick. But actually, I think it was brought up at the last meeting. I'm reading the minutes. I think Dr. Sackner has been made aware that this is an ongoing issue. So my assumption is that
it won't be an
Dr. Sackner is working on that. And
I tried to get this to you. I asked that it be fully filled, that all the positions would be filled, and we had names.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last administration really did, because from what I hear, the board brought this up last year.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously, that has not been corrected. I hope going forward that this will be resolved.
Then it won't be an issue. So that's just what I'm proposing, at least, is that we do this.
Well, that's actually one of the points I'm trying to make. We discussed this last meeting. We're discussing again this meeting. I don't want to see it come up again that we're voting on approving people that have already been working. I mean, how many times are we going to talk about it?
We'll get agreement from everybody here.
Yeah, okay, agreed.
And we have clearances for volunteers and substitutes. Is there any public comment on personnel issues? Seeing none, we'll move on to programs. The enrollment report.
It's in your packet to review.
You don't want to give it to the public?
If we can certainly post it. I mean, if that's the wish of the board to post the enrollments, we can do that.
Yeah, sure. Why not? It's not confidential.
These are routine monthly.
Are there any questions or comments from the public about the monthly enrollment, the student data report? Seeing none, can we have the policy committee report?
Yes, the policy committee met on January 27th, and we discussed a variety of policies. One of them is we're looking, actually my mind is telling me, I'm sorry, booster policy. We're looking at the booster policy. I believe I reported on this. Did I already?
Yeah. You reported on the curriculum.
No, I'm talking about last meeting.
Last meeting we talked about.
Yeah, okay.
So you have no
additional
report?
We have no report.
Okay. Are there any public comments on policy? Seeing none, transportation, there's no report. Old business, approving the school board committees, which we held off until we had our new members. My recommendations are that both Mr. Speed and Mr. Doty be added to the facilities committee. And
well,
so
before you start appointing them, don't you think you want to sort of fill them in on what the different committees are and what they do, and let them choose where they want to?
I was just about to do that.
I'm sorry.
Every board member serves on several committees, some standing committees and some ad hoc committees. And what we have are a curriculum and instruction committee, which basically deals with, as it says, the curriculum of the school. The facilities committee deals with facilities, building repairs, expenditures, that type of thing. The finance committee deals with the budget, among other things, and revenue, expenses, bond issues, interest payments, all that type of stuff. The negotiations committee was a merged committee of the former meet and discuss and the negotiations committee, and they deal with issues with the organizations and will eventually deal with negotiations. The revenue enhancement committee works on trying to increase the revenue coming into the district. Which committees am I missing? The two ad hoc committees are policy review committee, which when you get access to the website, well, you have access to the website anytime. When you start looking at the website, you'll see the policies. There are policies and guidelines. There are numerous policies and numerous guidelines that some of them hadn't been reviewed in quite a long time, that the policy committee started reviewing in the last 2 years, and will continue to review the policies to update them. And the transportation committee basically deals with our bus company contract. So what I am going to propose to the board, and A, you need to accept, and B, the board would need to vote on it, or vice versa, is that we have vacancies on the facilities committee, and I think that would be a good committee for you both to start on because it involves not only the buildings, but the cost associated with the buildings. And then, Mr. Doty, I was going to add you to the Revenue Enhancement Committee. Ms. Radowski is the chair of both those committees, and if she has the meetings on the same night, you would just attend both meetings. And Mr. Speed, I was going to add you to the Transportation Committee, which is ad hoc, but it hasn't met in a while and will be meeting soon.
And your last name is appropriate.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, I never did either. Must be asleep.
So the recommendation is that Mr. Speed would be added to Facilities and Transportation, Mr. Doty would be added to Facilities and Revenue Enhancement. The board would need to vote on those recommendations.
Are there any other slots in any other committees?
Pardon?
Are there any other slots in any other committees? Because we
Negotiations has 4 people. Finance has 4 people. With this, Facilities will have 4 people. What did I miss? Revenue Enhancement will have 4 people.
Policy Review has 1 more open slot, so does Curriculum and Instruction. Anybody's interested?
Well, Policy Review is ad hoc, and it has 3 members. And Curriculum Instruction has 3 members. So, I mean, we have sufficient members.
But also need an alternate to BCTC unless you guys...
I was going to get to those after
sorry.
we did these.
Okay, sorry.
So did you want to vote on these?
Well, I guess it's, if they want to sit on some additional committees, whether it's curriculum, instruction, and policy. I mean, those are 2 good committees, I think, to get in. If you're interested in discussing things like the block scheduling or AP classes and, all things that have to do with the curriculum in the school district, that's a great committee to sit on. And policy is, it can be a very dry topic. I sat on it for 2 years, but it's an important one. I mean, you get a really good handle on what the standards are for the school district pretty quickly, and what we're supposed to be doing and what we're not supposed to be doing. And not many people look at our policies and procedures and our administrative guidelines at all. And I think it's a good foundation. And of course, you can do that on your own, but I think it's a good place to be and kind of get your feet wet on some things too. But it really depends on what your ability is to attend not only the board meetings, but then you have all these subsequent committee meetings, and soon your calendar fills up pretty darn quickly. So
I will add that for Curriculum and Instruction and Policy Review, Curriculum and Instruction meets at 6 o'clock prior to this meeting, Committee of the Whole, and Policy Review meets at 6 o'clock prior to the voting meeting. So
you have a conflict if you guys are meeting prior to.
No, I had planned to meet the first Monday at 6 and then at 7:30. To try and knock 2 out in one night.
So let me just tell the 2 of you, with my recommendations, you're both added to 2 committees. So what Mr. Basil's saying is if you feel you have the time to be on more than 2 committees, feel free.
Or step off a committee. You don't have to serve on a particular committee. We only need really 2 board members on a committee to function, but you really want at least 3 and as many as 4. If we get to 5, you have a quorum, and you can't have a quorum for a committee meeting.
So let's start with that. Let's start with you, Mr. Doty. Are there committees you'd be interested in besides facilities and revenue?
I guess the question would be, does that have to be decided on tonight? Because I'm totally okay with those 2, but I don't know how much time and energy I would need to put into those 2 alone.
I think the only reason why there's a little bit of a push is just because until a decision is made and we actually vote on you guys being into the committees and moving forward, some committees like transportation, it's just the 2 of us. And so it'd be helpful to have another board member, participate in
facilities. There's only 2.
And facilities, there's 2 people as well. So, to get those things moving and have some meetings and get things going, it'd be nice to have another board member to have some input on that.
But if you were okay with the committees you suggested, you could always attend additional committee meetings just to kind of sit and hear what's going on. I mean, there's something that says if you have extra time, you can't sit in the audience. You might not necessarily be in discussion, but you can always visit.
Okay.
But
I like the two that you recommended.
Well, thank you. Mr. Speed.
I'm good with facilities and transportation, and I'll volunteer for curriculum instruction.
Thank you very much.
Diving in with both feet, Mr. Speed.
Transportation.
And Mr. Doty, if you find another committee you'd like to be on at a future date, we could add you to that.
Okay.
So, Mr. Basil, did you want to vote on these?
Yeah. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the appointments?
Just want to do a show of hands.
Voice here.
I have to read this. This will be an unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Any votes to the contrary? Hearing none, motion passes.
There you go. For the representatives, Mrs. Twardowski asked me, and this we already have agreement on. Mr. Kurtz is going to replace Mrs. Bites as the PSBA representative. Ms. Twardowski is the BCTC representative already. Mr. Raskev is the EIT rep. Mr. Kurtz is the BCIU rep. Mrs. Bites is going to be the Blazer Foundation rep. And Mrs. Dungan is going to be the BCTC alternate. So they're all filled.
Okay.
We need to approve those, so we just follow the same procedure.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All right, what are we motioning on?
The list of representatives as read by Mr. Martino.
Friendly amendment, yeah, sure. That's what
Mr. Martino, may I have a copy of that then, please?
No, I made the motion, and Mr. Kurtz seconded it.
All right, I was busy taking notes.
He was still taking notes
This
from
will
the
be
last.
an unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Say aye, right? We can't just. We're not voting. Yeah.
No.
Don't we have to say like aye?
No.
Just simply sign.
If nobody's opposed.
Unless
So it's
you,
like a consent thing. Unless we
Yes, exactly.
Can't call for nothing.
It's quick.
This was your idea, right?
Well, it was a little different, but I conceptualized. But it's fine. It works.
like it.
It's legal.
Thank you.
It's good.
Is there any public comment on these appointments? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. To approve a resolution to move the administrative office to the high school.
What are we going to discuss it? That we're doing now and voting in the voting meeting? We have.
I thought we were going to discuss it.
Well, and I thought we were going to discuss it and vote on the 24th is what you put in my email.
That's what I was originally intending. However,
So you don't want to discuss it tonight?
No, then he changed his mind.
yeah, I put this together because I know there's been some board members who had questions about it, and I thought it might be a good idea to. I like having the administration at the high school. I think that's a nice idea and a good thing we should work towards if possible. And we always struggle with the idea of where to put them, and we don't want to spend $100,000 to do that. It's wasteful. An idea that Mr. Martino had in sharing with me was to take the office space we have in the building. We have a lot. We have the front office, we have the guidance office, the principal's office, then we have the old guidance office in the old middle school, the annex. And the theory, or the idea, is to put the people in the district who are visited most frequently up in the front of the building where the public would be able to interact with them. For example, the superintendent, the principal, the assistant superintendent, the special ed department, put them up there. Then the parts of the district that are not visited by the public, for example, payroll, I'm assuming they're not visited too frequently, they could be put somewhere in the building that isn't accessible by the public. And if somebody had to go, they could be escorted down by a security guard. And in the process of doing that, you could save, in theory, the administration would have to look at this, you could save money on secretarial staff. Because you currently have 6 secretaries at the high school, and you have 4 in district office. If you combine them, and you look at job descriptions, you might be able to see some reductions there. That's something the administration is going to have to do, and I don't want a decision on whether we can do it or not tonight, because that's part of the resolution, tasking them to do that. So this solves those problems. In addition, it gives us the option to lease out more space in Amity Primary Center, which it might be a little bit far-fetched if it can be done or not, but it gives us that opportunity. Additionally, it'll solve the problem in the future of where does the administration go if we do want to lease out more space. So we have enough space. There's plenty of room. You could put cubicles in one of the old cafeterias. It would be up to the administration to determine where people go and give them that flexibility in the resolution. But ultimately, I think it would be in the best interest of students in the district and the staff to see district administration walk around the building, to have the superintendent accessible. I think there's a lot of upsides to it, and I hope the board will vote yes.
Any discussion? Any comment?
Well, I think potentially there could be upside, as you say. I think this discussion, I assume it did happen at the prior board, and if this decision to the high school should have been made, would have been made by the prior board. The prior board made the decision to move to APC. Tonight we had a discussion about doing a master plan. We might close the building, we might do this, we might do that. So I think if we are going to move to high school, that be part of that master plan. I think we're too late in the game to be going to high school. We're using our current facilities crew, which has other tasks to do, and they're admirably fitting this into their schedule to get everything taken care of. So if we do move from APC to the high school, I don't think that's going to be again, a huge cost to us. And we could do that, but I think that would be a decision to be made as part of this master plan, not now, and especially we're so close to getting everything done. So.
I would agree that it can be part of the master plan, and I think it should be. That being said, if that's where we're going to go with the master plan, then why not do it now instead of waiting a year? Again, that's just my opinion. I'm sure every other board member has an opinion.
Well, I'm struggling with this, Connor, because, we as a board last year, we approved moving to the APC. We had the discussion again in December, and the board approved moving to APC. We talked about it last month, and we agreed that we moved to APC. And now we're talking about it again here in February. And I understand your motivation for putting, I completely get it, okay? And for me, though, I need to see information that tells me that the high school is the best place to be. I haven't seen that information yet. So I haven't seen it from a facilities use standpoint in terms of cost. I haven't seen it from a security standpoint in terms of, how you're going to move people in and out of that facility in a safe way that doesn't put students at risk and doesn't add additional costs to the school district. I haven't seen it in regards to addressing the concerns that both Dr. Otto and then Dr. Sanker had both raised in terms of that being a command and control center if there's a problem in the school district. And usually the problems at your high school when you're shutting it down, where did all those people go then to manage the situation? So there's a whole host and variety of topics that have not been demonstrated to me that this is a solution we're going to get to in 2 weeks and be able to vote on.
My question for you would be, what do you need?
I think I just outlined all the things I needed to see.
That information?
I would
how visitors be escorted to different parts of the building. Do you want to know what?
I would want to see a plan. How are visitors going to come into this building? I want to hear feedback from the administration on splitting them up into different parts of the building and whether that's an acceptable.
I'm a manager. Am I going to have employees over here and employees over there?
Well, you already have. You have the district technology office at the high school. You have the district special ed office.
I'm hearing that from you. Okay, I haven't heard it from the people that actually have to live it yet. Okay, so I need to hear from our administrative staff how they would make this work and what the pros and cons of that are. I haven't heard that yet. And, the last thing I heard is when, Mr. Wolf and Mr. Potts and Ms. Hamill and everybody else who was on the facilities committee was working this through last year, and they're looking at costs, and they're looking at the additional cost of security and ripping out lockers, and,
this doesn't require any of that.
I hear what you're saying. I haven't seen the plan, and you're asking me to vote on something I haven't seen a plan for.
The plan is in front of you. The administration is coming up with the details. That is their job.
We're going to vote on it before we get the details?
No. We give them the authority in the resolution to come up with what they want.
But that's not what this says. This says we're going to approve a resolution to move the offices to the high school.
The resolution says all that. That's what the resolution, did you see the resolution?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Because the resolution details the process for the administration to do that.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And I'm of the ilk that I'd rather see what the process is, understand what the costs are, before I vote on a resolution to move things that way. Because what we're doing now is 4 times now we've told the administration, go left, go left, go left. And now we're telling them to go right. And then in March, are we going to tell them to go left again? Or do we revisit this thing again in April as information change? I mean, how many times do we revisit this information?
This is based on different assumptions. This addresses their concern with having building access to the administrators in another area where it is unsecure. And that's why we got into the locker analysis, tearing out lockers, building extra accesses. What we're saying now is anybody who needs access to the public is up in the front suite where it's already a secure area, and that other offices can be located within the much open space that there is at the school. So this is a completely different analysis that the admins and the facilities people have not considered. So we just know that there is enough room to do this, and that we feel that they would be able to make a nice arrangement if they were given the authority to do so. Because they're not looking at it from this perspective. The data has been not considered this way. The space constraints, the 6,600 square feet that we need.
I'm going to, just to keep it brief, I'm not going to go into a dissertation. I'm going to say I take part of what Mr. Radcom said and part of what Mr. Basil said. I'm not opposed to it. I think you look at it as part of the master plan. I think we're too late into it. A lot of you want to call for a vote and see where the votes lie. I don't see there's a point in discussing it for the 4th month in a row.
Maybe that's a better option, just to vote it down or approve it at this point, and then that be the end of it until the master plan comes out.
My big concern, as I expressed to you in my memo, is that as soon as you told us in January which way to go, we voted it. Ken Smith and his crew came in and began working with our staff on packing, discarding, getting things shredded, getting things off the wall, and there have been truckloads of things moved already to APC. The staff from the district office has been over and tried to direct where some of these materials would go and where they would be located. So we have a month into this already, and we're going to change things.
You guys are busy with snow removal and stuff right now.
IT's over right now. IT's over.
Okay, the IT's been over. Our IT department went over and made sure that our phone installations are ready to go over there, that our connections are ready to go. So if you're telling us to put everything on hold because you want to change us to the high school.
Well, we're not going to tell you to put anything on hold or not. We're going to tell you to keep doing what you're doing. If we vote no, we're going to tell you to do this.
Now, wait, because the first motion is going to be to rescind the original approval. So you are going to be telling them to put it on hold.
Right.
So let's not confuse
Well, no,
the
because then we're going to immediately vote on this, right?
But you're going to vote first to tell them to put it on hold. So don't tell them we're not.
30 seconds in between.
But she asked the question, if you're going to tell us to put it on hold, and you are, if you vote on it.
Well,
let me weigh in on this, please. And everybody here knows I've been against this move to the APC since it was first announced last February. I think it was done wrong, first of all. But let me ask a question, and Dr. Senker, I don't think you can answer this. Mrs. Torsia may be able to, or Mr. Basil. When did we renew the lease at Matthew Brook last?
When did we renew it last? 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It was a 7-year lease.
Yes.
7-year lease in 2007. The middle school opened up, if I'm not mistaken, in 2004. And we've had a half-empty building at the high school since 2004. So in my opinion, we never should have renewed the lease at Matthew Brook, and we've paid $85,000 a year since that we didn't need to pay, except for some reason the administration was against moving to the high school and never even looked at the possibility of it satisfactorily. Last year, Dr. Otto made this presentation in February where he first was going to save $400,000, then was going to save $600,000. And at that presentation, I stood up at the podium as a member of the public and said, and what are we going to do with the APC if we close it? And I was told, we can't even discuss that. We can't discuss it. We've got to have our 90-day cooling off period before we can discuss it. In May, when he announced that, when the vote was taken to close it, I asked again, what are we doing with the building? And I was told it's not decided yet. 3 times last year, I and other members of the public asked, have we attempted to advertise the building for lease? And the answer was, well, I guess we could, but we haven't yet. And this is February of 2014. The fact of the matter is, here's a letter from Mr. Subers to Dr. Otto dated January of 2013. Before Dr. Otto presented to the public the possibility of closing the APC. And in this letter, under facts in uppercase letters and underlined, it says...
Hold it. Are you about ready to disclose confidential information in public?
Well, then I'll wait till the executive session.
I think that's probably appropriate.
Yeah, I think
okay.
if we're going to be voting on this proposal tonight, then we have to have an executive session right now. If that's going to satisfy.
I'm just saying, you can't go back and take... Exactly. I mean, you can't take legal advice that we're getting from our attorney and then broadcast that out in public,
all right,
whatever it is.
I won't broadcast it. So I will tell you, without broadcasting it, I think it was done wrong, and I think we need to change it.
You think our building closure was done wrong?
Yes.
I disagree.
Okay.
And I hear that, and I know there's room for discussion of that possibility. But my concern that goes back to they're already in the middle of this process. Is you're going to turn the ship around and get it done and have everything.
And I just want to throw some. Apparently, Mr. Martino and Mr. Kurtz have information that the rest of us don't have, or some people might have. If you're going to read something that the attorney sent to Dr. Otto that you have that you want to bring up tonight, none of us know what you're talking about. So it's a little bit unfair for you to sit here and say you want to change things based on information that you have and you've known that you're throwing us at us at 11:15.
It's really not unfair, Ms. Brodowski, because I got this right off of Legal Opinions under BlazerNet, which is available to the entire board.
Right, but, and you know what? But I don't, I don't have the time to spend 8-10 hours a day reading everything that's out there from years past. I'm sorry, I don't. So if you knew you were going to bring it up, why wouldn't you have sent out an email that said, please take 5 minutes and read this? That's all I'm saying. I just think it's a little...
I think what he's saying is the closure and the move were lumped in together, and they should have been separate evaluations.
Okay, all I'm saying is if you had information that you thought was important to a discussion that we should be having in regards to a resolution that was requested to be put on the agenda for the vote, it would be nice that the rest of us would have known what backup documentation
Well, then let's talk about that, and let's talk about it publicly. When we were sworn in, I started to bring stuff up, and I was told, oh no, that's already been discussed, we can't discuss it. I sent out an email with just recommendations for committees to consider and I was jumped on that, oh my God, we don't do this. We don't send out emails to everybody talking about stuff. I still have the email with several people jumped at me for saying that. So I've stopped doing it. Now, which do you want?
No, that's not true.
Let me finish.
What we said was
I have
be careful about
I believe.
sending out mass emails and getting responses back. Huh?
Do I have the floor?
Well, yeah, but you're misrepresenting the facts.
Let me finish, and then you can tell me where I misrepresented.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you. I didn't ask for any feedback back on the recommendations I sent out. What I said was, these are things I think should be considered. That's all I said. I did not ask you for feedback. I did not ask her for feedback. I just said, these are things I think should be considered. So if I send out this and say, I think you should consider this, tell me the difference.
I think if you send something out to the board and you say, I'm going to be bringing this up on Monday night, like Mr. Kurtz did, okay? And here's the information that I want you to consider. And do not respond to this email. We can talk about it at a public meeting. That's the appropriate way to send out information to the board so that we all understand this is on your agenda, this is an item you want to discuss, and here's the information you have available to share with the rest of us so we come prepared to the meeting to discuss it.
Mr.
And that's the same message I gave to you back in December.
And I do not want to argue with you, but I have emails from you and other people that don't say that.
I did not respond to the committee agenda thing, and I haven't had any committee meetings yet. We didn't meet in January, and we haven't gotten there in February. So, vote on it. Or read it. I don't really care. But I'm not prepared to vote on something I don't have backup information on. So, if it was done wrong, I'm not aware of it. I wasn't on the board at the time.
The only thing I'd tell you is if we put off the vote until 2 weeks from now, that's fine. That just gives Mr. Smith 2 less weeks.
You can vote. I know how I'm going to vote. And if 5 of you vote a different way, that's great. That's fine.
Well,
I'm okay with voting.
I guess I'll make a motion then.
Well,
this is
that's for the special vote.
Okay, so we're going to wait. All right,
This is still the end of the committee of the whole.
Well, let's get into the voting meeting. So
is there any more discussion on this? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
No, it's public comment.
Public comment on what we just discussed. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We will take 5 minutes to stretch our legs and go right into the vote.
Let's go right into this thing and move it along.
Yeah, that's what you do.
And drag this out.
We're right into the voting meeting.
All your edits for this meeting, for this agenda.
We don't need a pledge of allegiance. Do we need another roll call?
No, you don't need to do that.
Agenda edits.
I submitted a list of agenda edits to Mrs. Kramer. I believe it forwarded to Mr. Martino.
And everybody has a copy.
Oh, okay. And everybody.
All right, I was just going to read them to the public.
Yeah.
Under personnel approvals, we're adding letter A1B, which is to approve Darlene Pfeiffer to be paid at a rate combining the positions of BEC head cook and kitchen manager. Under number 9, under new business, letter B, there's a motion to approve the high school selection, course selection guide for the school year 2014-15.
Mister, you have to follow them in order. They're numbered.
Which ones did I miss?
You have this
at the
full
top
sheet. Here, it's this full sheet. It's the stuff I gave you.
This full sheet first.
Yeah.
Okay, and then her notes. Okay. So do this. Go right here next.
This whole sheet is letter D. This number is letter B. Why would I do this one first?
That's fine.
They're under different sections of the...
No, it's in order. It's number 9B.
Okay.
Under number 9, under new business, under 9B, there's a motion to approve the high school course selection guide for school year 2014-2015.
That's not correct.
No, that's not
The
correct.
courses for 2014-2015, not the guide.
It's the courses.
Well, that's not what I'm reading, but okay. The edit is to approve the high school courses for school year 2014-15. Under number 9D, we're adding a motion to rescind the motion to relocate the Business Administration Office to the Amity Primary Center. Under 9E, there's a motion to approve the resolution to move the administrative offices to the Daniel Boone High School. Under 9F, under new business, there's a motion to approve this is the motion to approve the courses presented by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Okay.
So that's already under B. And 9G is a motion to hold the 2014 commencement at the Daniel Boone Area High School football field with a rain date location yet to be determined. Are there any other agenda edits? Saying none.
What? I just want my papers back. Later. Okay.
The procedures for public participation were discussed. Is there any presentation by the public on the agenda items? Seeing none. Personnel approvals. Motion to approve the following appointments. Is there a motion?
I make a motion for 7.
As amended.
As amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Basil.
Any discussion?
Is there any discussion on item 7? Seeing none, we could have the vote.
Okay, let's see here.
Right here.
Oh yeah, we do unanimous roll call vote, I guess. Yeah. This will be an unanimous roll call vote unless you hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Under financial approvals, a motion to approve the preliminary budget for 2014-15 as presented by the District Administration in Attachment 1. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just verifying this is the same budget that we discussed in January, correct? Without kindergarten, without scores.
Yes. Motion to approve the preliminary budget that was presented. Yes, it doesn't say that here, but it is the budget that was presented.
Mr. Seldenrich?
Because we've just been presented with two separate budgets tonight.
Yeah, there was 2 presented tonight. You need to decide on the expenditure level and the millage increase.
Say that again.
You need to decide as part of the motion, even though it's not included in that as a generic resolution, you need to decide on the expenditure level and the tax increase if there's going to be one.
But the tax increase, I have a question now. The board voted last meeting to opt.
The only thing you voted on last week was to present to advertise the budget and to make a budget available. You did not vote on the actual preliminary budget.
Can we vote on the Act 1 index then?
Opt in or out.
You voted to include the exceptions.
Right.
The flexibility. You did not vote on a budget. You voted simply to make one available.
But we voted to include the exception. Now, if I saw your 2 presentations tonight, the exception wasn't included in there. Is that correct?
Well, what we're saying tonight is that we believe that the preliminary budget that we were presenting or recommending to you as an administrative team is the 2.8% increase with kindergarten in it.
That's one of the options we're voting on.
Right.
Well, it includes the Act 1 index and the special exception, correct?
Well, no, you're voting on a specific budget. You're not voting on the Act 1 index.
Yes, but
The one with kindergarten
has 1.003 mils in it, correct?
Right.
Right. And the one without does not.
Correct.
Okay.
Or you can vote on anything in between.
But if we vote for the one without kindergarten and no tax increase, can we increase taxes and put kindergarten back in?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
So it really doesn't necessarily
Matter
what we vote on.
I guess symbolically it
Yes
does.
and no. I mean, I think what you want to do as a board is provide general guidance and direction for the administration in which you want to go in. So in other words, in one sense it doesn't matter because, yeah, in May you can change it because you're going to vote on the final preliminary budget and then June the final budget.
But it matters because we have to submit the preliminary budget, is that correct?
It matters by law. You have to submit the preliminary budget that will be filed with the Department of Education, and I would hope that budget that you approve tonight, you're giving direction. You're giving direction that you want to head in. So if you vote on the one with the 2.8% increase with kindergarten, you're telling us you want to include. That's the direction that you want to head.
Even though we can later whittle down.
Even though later you can change it. But obviously, administratively, as we've discussed, you have enrollment in March. And so the decision in kindergarten needs to be made.
I think we discussed that at the end of the month we're going to have a budget workshop where we discuss all these items in depth. I think what we're talking about now is not providing necessarily direction to the administration, but just meeting the legal formality that we have to meet. Is that
you're
right?
voting on the budget.
Yes.
Right, but if we pass a budget with kindergarten, parents are going to think that we have kindergarten, and if at the budget meeting we decide we're not keeping kindergarten, they're going to look at it
though that we're trying to.
And if we
That's
pass
not
it
the way
without
people will
kindergarten,
see
that's
it.
going to be a front page.
I don't think that's the way people will see
Right.
it.
Just like, I mean, tonight, if we vote for a budget without it, people are going to think that we cut kindergarten, but at least we can bring it back. But if you say you're going to have kindergarten and then you don't,
I'd like to stay
I don't know.
consistent with what the message has been since November, which was a budget that did not have these things in it, and that we were working towards those things. I think you send out a false message if you say yes and then turn around and you say no later. I think you get more aggravation, and certainly the press isn't going to report it in the context in which these decisions are being made. No offense to the Reading Eagle, but there may be other members of the press in different papers who say, "Oh, Daniel Boone flip-flops on blah blah blah," and it's a big headline.
So we're going to vote on the budget that was presented.
I would make the motion that we vote on the budget that was as it was originally presented to the board in January, which is neither one of these options that were shown to us tonight.
So that was a motion made, seconded by Mr. Kurtz. Is there any discussion? And I would add a discussion in that what was presented tonight includes Governor Corbett's presentation, which is nowhere near being passed at this point. So
what then is the expenses and millage that?
The millage was the Act 1 index, I believe, only on that budget. Mr. Boyer, do you have, or Mr. Selmer, do you have that one? I can probably pull it up.
It was 0.81 mils, which was the Act 1 index. And the total expenditure level was $52,737,031.
And that's without kindergarten sports.
That's without kindergarten, without sports, without basic education, or basic skills.
And music and all that, right?
Right.
I know when I was a new member, I was told that this is really a stepping stone to get into a final budget. It's something the state requires us to do, and it won't. This will not necessarily reflect at all what we pass at the end of the year, but it's another mandate that the state forces on us that we just have to do.
Yeah, well, our budgets have never, just for the benefit of you two, our budgets have never ended up where our preliminary budgets were.
You're right.
Ever. Not by a far stretch of the imagination. So, since I've been on the board, and so this is really a formality in my mind. The big decisions are going to be made at the budget meeting at the end of the month on what we're doing with kindergarten and sports, how we're paying for those things. What we had worked on last year was getting a balanced budget to the table to this board in November, and that balanced budget had a whole bunch of cuts in it. It had tax increase, it had use of fund balance, something that nobody particularly liked, but it's a balanced budget. We had a $3.6 million deficit. Right now we have a zero deficit as per that budget. And every budget since then, Mr. Selby, which has just presented to us, has also been a balanced budget, right? So it's just a question of what we're putting in there to balance the budget. We're using more fund balance, less funds. Taxes, no taxes. Cuts, no cuts. If we're lucky, maybe we'll get some concessions from our collective bargaining partners as well. We'll see.
So I believe you made the motion for the original, and I seconded it. If there's no more discussion, I guess we're ready for a vote.
No more discussion. No more discussion.
For the original one in June?
Yeah, the original one in June.
Okay, so
right.
it's as of, this one's amended.
Right. Okay. So it's yes, Mr. Doty. Mr. Doty.
This would be a yes.
Yeah.
I
like under promise.
Right. Mr. Basil, yes. Ms. White?
Yes.
Ms. Dungan?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Raskin?
No.
Mr. Lowski?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
And Mr. Martino?
No.
7-2, motion passes.
Under new business, item 9A, motion to approve the revised 2013-14 school year calendar.
I motion to approve the revised 2013-14 school year calendar as amended by the board in discussion.
Which I think I've already
Which is June utilizing that last week in June 1st, and then going back to the April dates if necessary.
Yes, that is the amendment that we made.
Okay.
So the motion, I guess, still stands. Is how it's amended.
Did somebody second?
Motion by Mr. Kurtz. Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? No discussion, Mr. Basil.
Okay, Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mrs. Dungan?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Dowski?
No.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1.
Item 9B, motion to approve the high school courses for school year 2014-15 as presented by the Curriculum Instruction Committee.
No, wait a second. B was pulled.
No, he never pulled it. He just modified it.
It was reworded by the
Yeah.
chair.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
It was motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Rathgeb. Any discussion? No discussion.
Okay. Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Dungan?
Yeah.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Turdowski?
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
9C, a motion to approve the Board President, Rich Martino, to attend March 22nd Board President training in Delaware County at a cost of $150.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Basil, second by Mr. Kurtz. I don't believe this needs a roll call vote, does it?
No. This will be an unanimous roll call vote unless we hear voice votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
We're not done.
What I missed? Oh, I forgot you got to do your. I'm sorry. I was looking at the original. I'm sorry.
I like your style, Mr.
Item 9D, a motion to rescind the original motion to relocate the district business and administrative office to the Amity Primary Center and authorize the administration to begin to prepare the site for occupancy, which was decided at the January 13th Committee of the Whole work session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mrs. Bites. Any discussion?
For the sake of people wondering which way to vote, if you vote yes on this item, it will allow us to consider moving the administration to the high school. A vote no is to stop it.
Well, a vote no would continue the move to the APC.
Yes, a vote no would continue the move to the APC and stop the potential move to the high school.
And a vote yes
would allow us to vote to move to the high school.
will allow.
Yes is to the high school, no is to APC.
But still leave it the way it is.
Right. Any other discussion?
Be brought up later on, right? This is something that can be, like, it's been brought up so many times already.
I think this would be the last time we'd be bringing it up.
Well, unless it was under a master plan.
Wait, I was going to say, we were talking about a master.
Putting to the master plan, certainly it can be brought up sometime next year or over. The move would happen to APC, and then it could be brought up again as a possible future part of the master plan.
What we're trying to do is get 14, 15 sort of squared away.
Right.
And from there, we can make a decision as to whether or not we're going to go from ABC to the high school or not. When this was originally presented to the board in this past fall, and then again, we talked about it in December, when it was first looked at, the cost of moving the high school was essentially zero in the sense that it's just our current labor cost to move our administrative offices to that building. And to move to the high school required some modifications and some additional costs to get that done, and there were some issues in terms of how you provide for security, because you're bringing public into the school building where you're intermingling with students. And those costs ranged over, I forget what it was, $60,000 to $70,000 or something like that. We heard a variety of different costs. You guys can jump in and correct me whenever I'm misstating things. And board members felt that they wanted us to revisit that decision and take a second look at the high school. As you heard tonight, that there were some other alternative ideas that we should consider in order to incorporate moving the administrative offices to that building. And, well, you've heard the discussion. So they've obviously come to some conclusions on that and want to continue to move forward with it. I thought we had discussed in January that we would look at it as part of an overall comprehensive plan in terms of facilities use and doing an analysis on the efficiency of space and everything else that we're doing there. And you've heard the rest of the conversation since then. So, any other comments on that? I mean, I don't want to misrepresent.
No, I think that was an accurate representation of the discussions from the previous few months. It is helpful to the new members. I mean, I'm just thinking that if we're going to move in this direction in the future, I'd rather do it instead of moving to one location, just to move to another. But I'm getting back to the discussion, so I think it's better if we just, for the sake of brevity, move on. I think everybody understands it for the most part. That's fine.
No further discussion.
All right.
We don't want to be unanimous for this?
No. Oh, you can.
No.
I vote to rescind.
Right.
Well, we're not doing it.
No, I'm calling a roll call vote.
I might discuss it.
No, he did call roll call.
Yes or
Well,
no?
that's what he wants.
How did you call her name?
Yeah.
How I didn't hear you call her
He's
name?
asking for my vote. You did ask for my vote.
Yes, I did.
All right. The question is, am I voting to rescind or to not rescind? I'm voting
Motion to rescind.
So yes.
However,
Rescind.
if that's a yes or no.
Got it.
Okay.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathke.
No.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Ms. Twardowski.
No.
Mr. Basil, no. Mrs. Bites.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
No.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passed. 5-4.
I now move item E9.
9E is the motion to approve the resolution for the administrative officers to move to the high school. Yes.
That's the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Curtis, second by Mrs. Bites. Is there a discussion?
I kind of thought that you would have to vote yes on this, but I guess.
No. They can stay where they're at.
Which would take another vote to extend the contract to Matthew Brook, but that's neither here nor there yet.
Right.
No discussion? No discussion, Mr. Basil.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathke.
No.
Ms. Twardowski.
No.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Huh?
Speed was 3.
Speed was 3. Ms. Twardowski was 4. Mr. Basil, no. Mrs. Bites.
Yes.
Mrs. Dungan.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passed, 6-3.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, don't get.
Now, there's a motion to hold the 2014 commencement at the Daniel Boone Area High School football field with a rain date location to be determined.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kurtz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Speed. Is there any discussion?
Rain date to be determined, or rain location.
Rain location to be determined, yes.
Was that what you
So
were
you're advising the
That's what I
administration
stated, yeah.
not to book Alvernia at this point? Is what the motion is saying, right?
I think we have to set the date. That wasn't.
Did we wait?
I don't think that was done.
Well,
What are we waiting for?
what I have handed to me here is with a rain date location at blank. That's what's handed to me.
F?
So, if that's your motion,
No, see, they
fine. If not, if you want to modify the motion,
I will modify the motion to say at
instead
Daniel
of
Boone
pulling
High School.
this, he modifies it.
is there a second?
And then he made this F.
Second.
What's this one?
So the question is, what are we voting on? We're voting on to hold the commencement at the football field.
And if it were
Rain location will be
in the auditorium.
I have it all
inside
planned
somewhere.
out.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, make sure I have the motion correct. What is the motion?
The motion is to hold the 2014 commencement at the Daniel Boone Area High School football field with a rain date location at the high school, in the high school. Correct?
My motion.
And it was motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Speed.
In high school.
Any additional discussion? Mr. Basil.
Mr. Rathke.
No.
Ms. Twardowski.
Mr. Speed.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Ms. Twardowski.
No.
Mr. Basil, no. Mrs. Bites.
Yes.
Mrs. Dungan.
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passed, 6-3.
Public comment?
Public comment on motion. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I thought you were going to do it. Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Fine. I'll go by my.
What he said, he did it once, he wasn't going to do it twice.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this one.
They're a little messy because
Mr. Martino, I have my agenda and facts that were passed down to you.
If it wasn't delivered yesterday,
I was gonna say,
I finally got more coming than you think.
And also the Ray and Associates agreement.
You guys,
great minds think alike. What do you want? Yeah.
Andrew and probably myself are going to do it.
It was in
Yeah, which, right. The point of the tax increase of 29 mil.
I did that first story.
I get what you use the fund balance.
Thank you, Michael.